Okay, I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of council. First, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional unceded territory of the Snanawas First Nation. First item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda, so I'll just make that motion that the January 28th, 2026 regular council meeting agenda be adopted with additional information for 5F, 9A, 9B, 10B, and 11A. Is there seconded by Councillor Lerner? Any additions, deletions? Councillor Lerner?
I'd like to please move that item 10A go after 8A, and I'm happy to say why if it's seconded.
So you're amending the agenda to
Amending to
10.
move 10A, yeah, after 8A.
Okay, I'll second that. Go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
Basically, these are our committee of the whole recommendations. I did not include 10B, just 10A. And we've already discussed them extensively, so that while there might be some discussion, staff cannot actually act on any of these until they're passed. And it's a very long agenda, so I'd like staff to be able to act on our recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Yes, I would like 11C before 10A.
Okay, we're not dealing with that right now. We already have one on the floor.
What's that?
We already have one on the floor. So we'll deal with Councillor Lerner's
Okay.
amendment, and then we can come back to yours. Unless there's any further question, debate on, yeah, go ahead if you're going to debate.
Yes,
Councillor Lerner's.
my input on that is that it's more appropriate to have 11C right after 8A because it twins with that. It's right on the care facility. It goes with it. Then we'd have 10A right after that.
Okay, whatever, you've made your argument on it. I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor and opposed? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Any additional amendments to the agenda? Councillor Savage?
In that case, I'll request that 11C goes right after the new position of 10A, which is one after 8A, because it's very related to the care facility one. So.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Lerner, and then discussion on that. Keeping in mind, we are tight on time tonight. Okay, I will call the question on the amendment. All those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. Any further amendments to the agenda? Okay, hearing nothing, I'll move to calling the question on the agenda is amended twice now. All those in favor, opposed, that's carried unanimously. All right, it takes us on to item 3. We have some correspondence with respect to Bill M216, Professional Reliance Act. That's just on there for information through the council. Okay, moving on the agenda. So we have under 4, Mayor and Council verbal updates. Start down, Councillor Mandel, if you wish.
Nothing tonight.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Savage.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Councillor Lerner. Okay. For myself, I think it's fairly well known to the community now, or at least some of the community and council and staff and so forth, that there's a woodlot tour this Friday afternoon. So the poster's on the website. It's also being posted to social media. Seems like there's a fair bit of interest, so I hope everybody can, or as many people can make it as possible. It should be a very informative session with the woodlot licensee holders and their forester. So yeah, I have another update, but I'll save that maybe for next meeting, so I'll end it there. So and moving on, we have the consent agenda. So Councillor Mundell, is this would be the time to declare, if you're planning to declare conflict, do it on the items in here as well as the additional item.
Thank you. Yes, I will be declaring a conflict. As many of you know, Island Health is my employer. And just to not demonstrate any bias, I will recuse myself for any voting on the matters.
And you have to state what items.
Oh, great. Delcy, I might need your help here. I think it was
So it'd be 5D.
5, wasn't it A too?
It's 5D, 5E, and 8A.
Okay, so 5, sorry, say that again.
5D, 5E, and 8A.
8A, okay.
Okay. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'll recommend that both 5D and 5E and 5D be removed from the consent agenda. So are there any additional items to be removed from the consent agenda? Okay, you can say for this vote. I'll move that items 5A, B, C, and F be approved. Second by Councillor Lerner. I will move to calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Now we're on 5D and E, so noting Councillor Mandel is leaving the meeting for reasons already given. All right, so I'll move 5D and E. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Lerner. I will move to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried unanimously. That takes us on to the next item, which is public input. So we're under 7 of the agenda. So we have one in the gallery, so I will read this. So persons recognized by the chair to speak must first state their name and address for the record, may speak once for up to 2 minutes unless council resolves otherwise, and are limited to providing comment regarding items listed on this evening's agenda, excluding public hearing topics. The comments must be directed to the chair, must not be directed to individual council members, staff, or the audience, and must not include personnel issues. And we expect good behavior. Anybody in the gallery wishing to go to the podium? Nope. Any remotely registered this evening? None. Okay, thank you. All right, so that was easy. Moving on, we're at the 8A. So we're on to the form and character development permit application for 69110 Lantzville Road for the long-term care facility. Director Robinson's going to introduce.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a very short presentation, then be happy to answer any questions that council has. I also note that we have representatives from Island Health in the room, as well as we have the project architect online via Zoom. Excellent. Thank you for joining us tonight. Happy to be here. Thank you, Your Worship. Tonight we have a development permit for form and character for 6910 Lantzville Road, which is the Island Health Long-Term Care Facility. The applicant has applied for development permit number 2516 for form and character. I've prepared some slides and I'll walk you through the plans. They're also included in your agenda package. The pertinent items that we're looking at today are the site plan, the building elevations, landscape, and lighting plans. Island Health have also indicated that they are targeting LEED Gold standard for the building, and I'm sure the project architect can answer any questions you have about that. This location of the site that we're dealing with today is on the corner of Lantzville and Shook Roads, right on the boundary with the city of Nanaimo. You've already seen the project renderings through the OCP and zoning bylaw amendment process, but I've included them here today as they're also included in your package to give you an idea of the color of the facade materials as well as the building massing and proportion to the site. We've also got a piece in your agenda package which has certain call-outs which highlight certain features dealing with the landscape plan. So I've included that here. You can see that on the slide deck. The site plan, it's a kind of a almost X-shaped foundation on the center of the site with the parking facilities located on the east. And some landscaping for the residents of the long-term care facility, some outdoor amenity space on the west side of the building. The service entry location is off the Shook Road frontage, and there's some loading docks that you can see on your building site plan as well as on the floor plans that we included in your package. The main floor plan includes circulation space for multiple different uses, including the hospice, daycare, and adult day programming uses, as well as access to the care floors of the facility. The elevation plans indicate the exterior finishing materials, colors, and other massing items that for council's review. There's this is north and east, and west and south, also included on in your agenda package, I believe under Appendix B. Landscape plan details plantings around the site, including those outdoor amenity spaces that were referenced for the long-term care residents, as well as the hospice residents and the daycare programming space, as well as landscaping around the parking areas and the building entrances. Lighting plan's also been included, which includes full cutoff lighting as well as down lighting in excuse me, in order to demonstrate dark sky compliance. Staff recommendation is the development permit for 6910 Lantzville Road be issued, and that is the motion in front of you today. I'm happy to answer any questions the council has.
Okay, so through to council, this will be the time to ask questions before we get the motion on the floor and have debate. So Councillor Lerner and then Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Through to Director Robinson, just one question. Back to that slide that showed landscape plan. That one, yes, thank you. At the very top of the image, I see that the path, instead of winding through the trees, goes around the edge of the trees. And I think if I had trouble reading it on my page, so I just want to make sure I got this right. It says, all existing trees and vegetation to be retained. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if you see on the plan, which is also included in your package, there's a hash area around
Yeah.
the north, the east, and then also on the, on the west side of the building, as well as the east side of the parking lot. And those are the areas that have been identified for tree retention.
Excellent. That makes me very happy. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Director Robinson. Can you go to the first slide you brought up, please? My question pertains to the location of the pathway on the north side. Yeah, it was the one that you just showed, please.
Oh, the rendering?
Yeah, that's excellent, thank you. So I think I'm looking at the north side there. I see an access road coming from Shuk in front of the buildings, and then it looks like the pathway is going to be on the north side of the access road. Can you confirm if that's correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And the intention has always been to have that connect to the end of Suzanne Place. And I think I heard that there were some issues with that. Could you speak to that, please?
Well, if you look on the other site plan drawing here, you can see it's looped up to Suzanne Place. I think the original design may have been several design iterations ago. As council will recall, there have been several built changes in building design. Originally, the path was to kind of be designed to meander through the wooded buffer. But when detailed site design started to occur, it was identified, I believe, by the landscape architect that the path should actually come south of those trees so as to not require any tree removals.
I understand that, and what I'm speaking to is the connection from the end of Suzanne Place, which I know isn't Island Health's to do. It would be district property, that's a right-of-way. But the intention is that this be a connection for a continuous route through this part of the community, so people west of that point can walk along the right-of-way and connect there and continue to Shuk Road. So I need to know if that connection is being maintained.
Yep, it's shown actually in the top left of the site image
yeah, I
here,
see
where it's
that there.
curved up to the Suzanne Place. Yep.
Okay, good, thank you. And the other question, just because I'm a stickler for accurate detail, there's been talk about the height of the trees on the north side being as high as 6 stories, but measurements perhaps were less than 6 stories. So just to clarify the confusion, not trying to stir up anything here, but can you just let it be known so people know what is the height of the trees, please, relative to the building?
So I think you can see the project architect has added some tree height measurements to the elevation plans on either side of the building. They're shown on the elevation pages. I can't quite read the measurement on there, but it looks like they're around the 6-story mark, but not quite there.
Okay, thank you. And just quickly, if you could, so we don't take too much time, advocating for a gold standard sounds wonderful. But what is a gold standard in brief?
Absolutely. So there's a North American standard called Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, or LEED. It has several different levels of building energy efficiency. It deals with like mechanical, electrical, heating and cooling systems, as well as actual building components. And in order to obtain different levels, I think it starts at bronze and works all the way up to LEED Platinum is the highest level. So there's 3 or 4 different steps. And it has to deal with a number of points that are assigned based on the building components that you've included.
Thank you. I get that. That's great.
Okay, Councillor Savage.
You, as through chair to staff, has a name for the facility been decided yet?
My understanding is called the Nanaimo Lantzville Long-Term Care Facility, but our colleagues at Island Health can probably confirm that for us.
Thank you for the question. So the project name right now is still the Nanaimo Lantzville Long-Term Care Home. We are hoping to work with the local nation to see if they're interested in gifting a name to Island Health for the facility. We have a ministry policy that we have to work through with the ministry, and so naming of facilities can take several months to a year or something, but we don't have a formal name as of yet, but we will be working with the local community and the local First Nation, the host nation, to see if they're interested in working with us to gift a name to us.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we've mentioned that before, but we're hoping here in Lantzville that Lantzville is somewhere in the name because it is in Lantzville, so, yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you for the presentation. I'll get the motion on the floor that the development permit number DP 25-16 for 6910 Lantzville Road be issued. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Lerner. And then for discussion, I have nothing to discuss or debate on this. Through the seconder, Councillor Lerner, if you wish.
No, nothing at this time, other than to note my pleasure in the form and character, and particularly the new path direction with full retention of trees and the dark night sky that was mentioned tonight, so that's great.
Okay, through the rest of the council. Okay, then I'll move to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed, that is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you for that. Moving on, we have 11C to follow. Actually, well, she'll need to come back in, but I think she may need to declare a conflict again on that. But I'll leave her to decide. Which one's, oh no, hold on, 11C. So Councillor Mundell, I must point out to you, obviously we just passed some motions as related to the long-term care facility. This motion also pertains to the long-term care facility. So I will stop there and let you decide what you wish to do.
Can you just tell me which motion we're on?
11C, sorry, my apologies. So this is the 219 covenant proposal for the long-term care facility.
Yeah, I think I'll declare conflict with anything to do with
Okay.
Island Health.
So you have to, yeah, so in general terms, just state the reason why.
All right, I'm declaring conflict for 11A.
C.
C, sorry. Gosh, there's too many. 11C, as Island Health is my employer, and I do not want there to be any perceived bias.
Okay. Sorry to make it, we should have caught that earlier, but my apologies. Okay, Councillor Lerner, this is your recommendation, if you wish.
Sure. Thank you. That council directs staff to engage in discussions with Island Health to propose a 219 covenant be enacted as part of the phase development agreement or development permit to preserve the area of treed green space as identified in the diagram presented with this motion on the west side of the property of the Lantzville Long-Term Care Facility, and further that staff proceed with said 219 covenant if Island Health agrees.
Okay, I'll second that, and then for discussion, go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
Yes, basically, there's a large treat area that's already set for tree retention. This motion is purely to engage in discussions and let Island Health decide if they would be interested in having a covenant on that area. I think would be beneficial for the community, and of course, at a future date, covenants can always be renegotiated or nullified, but it would be, I think, beneficial to the community to preserve that area, and a covenant would accomplish that.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, for myself, keep it real brief, but yeah, I think at the end of this, we need a yes, no answer. So there's, is in the event that it is a no, that this council can determine next steps with respect to maintaining that tree canopy on that side of the property. So I'll leave my remarks there. Through the rest of council, Councillor Savage.
Thank you. Yes, I'll support this, and I'll just make an amendment, please, that the motion on the floor be amended by inserting after the phrase "engage in discussions with Island Health 2," insert the words "request three items, that the outdoor lighting be unobtrusive with short lamp posts."
So Councillor Savage, okay, I'll let you finish, but I'm already gonna, I believe this is really out of order
With-
in the line of this motion, but go ahead.
With
finish.
short lamp posts with low wattage being an example, that more trees are planted in the North Forest buffer, and
Do you have a third? Is there a third item, Councillor Savage? I thought you said there's,
well, the way it's inserted, it includes Councillor Lerner's item.
okay. So I'm gonna make a ruling on this, and I believe it's out of order, and with the motion that's on the floor. It's completely separate issues. If you want to do a follow-up motion or bring it, or do a notice of motion and asking for those requests, I think that would be more in order, but I believe the amendment's out of order.
Yeah, if I can do a follow-up motion right after this, it's fine. Otherwise, I'll
Even, okay, the council can rule on that or decide that after the fact. Okay, so we have the motion.
Sorry,
on-
in that case, that's not a sure thing, then I want to defend this. It's so simple that I'm doing exactly what Councillor Lerner is doing. He's simply requesting and engage in discussions with Island Health to request his item, and I'm adding two other items to request. We're not saying they have to do it, it's simply requesting them in discussion. It's exactly what Councillor Lerner is doing.
Okay, I
He's
understand
doing
what
one,
you're
I'm
saying.
doing 2 and 3.
Yeah, so Councillor Lerner, or sorry, Councillor Savage, the issue is it's a 219 covenant, and when that gets registered on title, that is specific instruction that goes with the land use. So I see that as being completely separate with the tree canopy piece, as opposed to, you know, the instructions around lamp post heights and whatever else you just, I don't even have the copy of the amendment, so it's hard to follow. But I'm gonna maintain the ruling that I believe the amendments are out of order. If you want to do a follow-up motion afterwards, that doesn't include a 219 covenant, that's fine.
Okay,
But
thank you.
this is a 219 covenant, it has different implications. Okay, so there we go, we got the 219 covenant motion on the floor. Councillor Lerner, anything further? Anything further from council on this? Okay, so I will move then to call into question. All those in favor and opposed? That's carried unanimously. And then now we're, I will allow the next motion, if however you want to word it, Councillor Savage.
Yes, thank you. So it'll simply read, the same as Councillor Lerner's at the start, that council directs staff to engage in discussions with Island Health to request that the outdoor lighting be unobtrusive with short lamp posts with low wattage as an example. That more trees are planted in the North Forest buffer.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconder by Councillor Jones. Go ahead, Well, okay, actually, before we get into debate, I think there's issues with at least the first half, but go ahead, Director Robinson, and then
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to pull council's attention to page 75 of your agenda, which includes the lighting plan that we just approved with the development permit for the long-term care facility. It includes full colored-off and dark sky compliant lighting with, you can see the poles there and the pole distribution on the site on that page, as well as the lighting instruments that indicate dark sky compliance, as well as the kind of shape of the shades that are on the poles. Staff have reviewed this in detail, as well as Coors Engineering have reviewed it. We're satisfied with the dark sky compliance component.
Okay, and just to follow up with that, please, through chair to staff, so does that mean the form and character then would have to be amended to do this?
Through the chair to the councillor, respectfully, sir, I think the lighting plan already accomplishes what you're asking for.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I also think that it would require the development permit and the form and character that we just gave to be amended, so I won't bother. I'll withdraw that part of it. So then my motion will, I'll voluntarily do this, so my motion will read that council directs staff to engage in discussions with Island Health to request that more trees are planted in the North Forest buffer.
So I think really, and just to keep it procedurally correct, I think Councillor Savage is just suggesting an amendment to strike out anything to do with lighting and to leave the planting part of the motion intact. Is that correct, Councillor Savage?
Yes, well, it wasn't seconded, I don't believe.
Yes, it was seconded.
Oh, it was,
yeah.
sorry, okay.
That's why we're in discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I'll move to amend that, striking the lighting portion, thank you.
And do we have a seconder to that? So second by Councillor Jones. Further discussion, Councillor Savage, on the amendment?
Yeah, no, and just for the record, the way I phrased it, it wasn't involving a Covenant 219 at all, but that's fine, we've accomplished it, and it's just what I'm doing, I'm reflecting one of the residents that had requested this that lives right next to it on Rosalind, and he had brought up that the forest buffers is just a little weak in certain spots, a little thin, so it'd be helpful to the Rosalind Crescent residents. And it's a very inexpensive thing. Buying, native forest trees are very inexpensive, but just to plant them for the future so they grow and create a little bit of a thicker buffer, which would be nicer for the residents of the care facility too. They'd have more nice forests and trees to look out in, and it's not robbing any light because it faces north from the facility. Thank you.
Councillor Jones, if you wish.
Yes, so I do support the motion. The other reason for planting the trees is that as some get older and mature and near the end of the life, it's nice to have younger ones already getting into adulthood and starting to have some effect. With respect to the lighting, so through the chair to staff, do I understand then that if there is a desire to put some lighting in this forest area for whatever reason, that it automatically, the lighting that we have passed in form and character applies? It doesn't have to come back to council for approval? Is that correct then?
Through your worship to the councillor, any kind of minor changes wouldn't require council approval. Again, the form and character is really focused on the siting of the building and then just making sure that the other details are established. Staff can say, it doesn't mean like, oh, this light pole is located 10 feet from the building. If you put it from 11 feet from the building, it has to go back to council. No, that's not the case. We're really dealing with the broad form and character of the building as well as the layout of the site.
Okay, so it applies to the whole property then. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything further? Okay, I'll move to calling the question. All those in favor, opposed, that's carried unanimously. Is there anything further? Okay, so at this point, we can have Councillor Mundell come back up.
Just so you know, 10A is next. It's a little out of order, but that's fine.
We're on 10A now. It's going to be up in section 9A.
Okay, so we're on to 10A. So this is the January 21st, 2026 Committee of the Whole recommendations. So we have a series of motions that were, or recommendations made to council as stated. So we don't actually have these worded in a way that that council recommends, but but they're here for discussion and so forth. So we can go through the first one, which is the motion one, that's to do with the community use building B, through to council, discussion on the recommendation, and then we can get a motion on the floor. Go ahead, Councillor Lerner. Oh, sorry?
I was gonna move it, so I'm good.
Yeah, okay, well then make the motion. Again, the way it's worded in there is like, that was the committee, the whole recommendation. But
I'll
it's not-
word it, in that case, I'll word it that the council directs that at least 2 public informations be held for residents to consider options for and provide feedback about the future of community use building B. And further, that council has approved the options and the information contained therein. At these public information sessions, residents be shown options for the future of community use building B, including the 4 options presented on the January 21st, 2026 Committee of the Whole agenda, as well as parkland that contain general information such as potential costs and changes to community use, recommended unanimously by that.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Savage, and then discussion. Okay, Councillor Savage, if you wish.
Yes, I'll certainly support this great idea, and I have an amendment after others have spoken. I'll make it now just for brevity. I move to amend the motion by inserting at the end, and further that residents be invited to submit other options.
Okay, is there a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Mundell, and then discussion on the amendment, if you wish, Councillor Savage.
Yeah, thank you. It's quite simple. It's just basically we may not have thought of all the options for being presented. So let's give residents the opportunity, if they can think of other options, that we're open to those as well. Thank you.
So, Councillor Mundell,
Nothing to add.
and just a question through the mover, is this prior to the information sessions, or they're allowed to make them at the public information sessions? No, sorry, the mover, the amendment.
It just goes with the motion, so whatever the emotion, the rest of the motion applies to, it's the same timing for this. It's in just adding another adjunct to it, so it'll be up to staff, whoever they want to conduct it. It could be at the meeting, before, whatever they choose.
Okay, personally, I'm a bit puzzled because, you know, that's the whole idea of having a public information session, is to garner input from the community, and that could also include other options that council hasn't considered. So I just see this as kind of a redundant, but anyways, the amendments on the floor. Anything further on the amendment? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Back to the main motion as amended. Anything further? Okay, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. It takes us on the second motion listed there. This one has to do with basically taking measures to secure community use building B. So is someone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Lerner, go ahead.
That council direct that community use building be fully secured with plywood and other measures to secure the building.
Okay, I'll second that. And then for discussion, Councillor Lerner, if you wish. Okay, for myself, nope. Rest of the council, go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Yes, just that there was another part of this, which was that the plywood would be installed on the inside of the building just for aesthetic purposes.
Okay, so you believe it was part of the motion?
Yes, we agreed on it in the committee of the whole. I
Yeah,
don't
so-
know how to handle it tonight.
So it wasn't included as part of the motion committee of the whole. It's just staff understands the instruction that they're gonna make it aesthetically pleasing by having the plywood on the inside. Counselor Mundell? Okay, all right, I'll move then to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. Moves us on to motion 3. So this is having to do with giving instruction to staff regarding the tax rate and developing the budget and so forth. There's a motion or a recommendation to the council. Councillor Lerner, if you wish.
That council directs staff to prepare the budget with an increase to the property tax of not less than 4% and not more than 5%.
Okay, is there a seconder to this? Second by Councillor Mundell. And then for discussion, go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
We already discussed it extensively at the Committee of the Whole. It sounds, based on what we heard at the meeting, Committee of the Whole from staff, that the 4 to 5% is feasible. Of course, we'll have to go get community input on what the community wants to see. And I'm hoping that this passes. We discussed it for a very long time, Committee of the Whole, so I won't add to that, but I will say that I look forward to seeing the public's input on it, and I look forward to seeing a budget that comes back between 4 and 5%. Thank you.
Councillor Mundell and then Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting this because I think it is time that we did take a look at an increase, and I think that this is what I would consider probably a modest increase. Some folks may think it's high, but considering we've had 0% for a while, and we definitely have some items that need attention, and as we all know, costs of everything are going up exponentially. So I think a 4 to 5% increase is a range that isn't excessive, but also meets the needs of this budget.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Yes, I just wanted to voice that it's difficult for this right now because we don't know what the budget is going to suggest for a tax increase. And by the time we're done, we should at least retain the option that it may come in under the 4%. So I'm not interpreting this to mean that it may not be under 4%, just that it's recommended.
Okay, I got myself next. I just have a question first through to staff. In terms of, the comments being made, this could be feasible to go to 4 to 5. But, my question has to do with, in relation to setting up a sustainable budget for the District of Lantzville for this year, next year, and years to come. Like, my understanding is the 6.5% was a minimum to get us even remotely back on track. So maybe if staff could comment to the, sure, staff can do anything. They could give us back a 0% budget. But in terms of staff's recommendation, professional recommendation on what's best for the District of Lantzville, is a 4 to 5 realistic? Through to staff.
So 6.5% is $100, $105 per household. So if you look at $105 per household per year, divide that by 12, I think it's $8 and a few cents. I don't know how many cents. And the $100 a year per household will allow us to operationally do all the things we need to do, because in previous years, it was 0 on the operations side and 3% on the capital side. So if council does not want to do the 6.5% and council wants staff to bring 4 to 5% in the next budget meeting, then we will do that as per council. But the professional recommendation is 6.5 because that's what our neighbors are doing as well in keeping with inflation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so for myself, you know, as with the committee of the whole, I won't be supporting this. You know, there's no need to put bookends on staff at this point, especially when they've already come back to us and told us 6.5 is kind of like the minimum that's required. You know, we could probably put a 1 in front of it and call it 16.5, and it probably still wouldn't get us to where we need to be. You know, it's pretty clear to me when we look at reserve contributions that were forecasted for this next budget, you know, starting at just under 200,000 and staff already massaging the numbers to try to get up to 300,000. That's not enough. You know, we have Dickinson Road coming up at 1.2 million over 4 years, and that's the bare bones improvements. That's nothing fancy, just repaving. Where's the money gonna come from? I just don't see it. You know, we don't have any influx of money coming to us, especially, you know, when it comes to developments and so forth, especially, you know, commercial developments. I just, you know, I think the chickens are coming home to roost on this, you know, after a 0, 0, and a 3. Yeah, I'll leave my remarks there for now, but again, I just can't support it. I'll leave it there. So additional speakers, first time, Councillor Savage, and back to Councillor Lerner.
Yes, first of all, this is a target for staff. They asked, can you give us a target for it? And in terms of your comments, Mayor Swain, that they're the professionals, that's betraying the fact that council provides oversight. You're implying that we're not professionals and we don't know what we're doing. I'll give you one example. There's recruiting 20,000. Legal is slated for 86,000. We've reduced it to 70,000 before. There's a 1% decrease right there. We've indicated that some of us do not support the new position of the administrative CAO. That's in the neighborhood of, what, 90,000 or something right there. There's a 3% roughly decrease right there. So to speak like there's something magical about these numbers where there's a huge difference between 4 and 6.5%, it's just not the case. That for this year, I believe it's $33,800 for every increase in tax, 1% tax increase. Well, that's not a lot of money. And we've been faithfully putting $680,000 into the road reserve. We have DCCs coming from every new unit that's being built. We've increased the DCCs. We also have gas tax, and we have a healthy amount in a lot of the reserves, about 1.1 million in the water connection fees. We've got amenities. I forget what that is, but it's up well over $1 million. So we've got a lot of money added up. So what we're trying to do is guide things carefully to balance what's difficult for residents and what's necessary to move ahead. And for this year, that's what I've agreed with, and the majority of council agreed with this target. So there's nothing unprofessional or, bleeding things dry about it. We're talking about the difference between 6.5% and up to 5%. That's a mere, $44,000. It's not a big amount. And the other factor here is we're getting absolutely slammed by these other things that we collect taxes for other people. And every year the school tax goes up. The hospital tax has been phenomenal how fast it's increasing. And that's a provincial responsibility and a federal responsibility to pay for health. It's not a local government responsibility. And more, it's increasing. So suddenly we're now paying for health costs. I've never seen this before. So we have to keep our portion down, which is, about 40%. It's been generally of all the taxes we collect. So by keeping the Lantzville portion down, we're helping residents cope with all these other enormous increases. The RDN's been very high every year. It's a little lower this year, the increase. And hospital tax, the library has been reasonable with its increases, but it comes a point, my taxes are over $10,000 a year. I've bought houses for less than that, so it's unbelievable how much people are paying already. So it's not an endless pit, and we've tried to keep operational down. We've tried so that we can put the money into infrastructure, and I'll be perfectly prepared to increase over time, but let's do it in a steady fashion and make sure most of it goes to capital costs. And the other thing we did, we've done all manner of stuff to save taxes, but increase income. We increased the managed forest tax rate to help residents. We've invested a good part of the Growing Communities Fund into a land which should bear fruit soon. That will return the money, and hopefully with a profit. We got free parkland out of the deal, so we don't have to pay for it. We've been very responsible in saving all manner of money, keeping legal costs down and so on. So we're hardly being irresponsible with keeping a healthy amount of funds there for things. If we hadn't done all these things for the past 3 years, we'd be in far worse shape from all the savings and clever ways. We also passed a motion which is now being done, to increase the DCCs. That will also help fund things. So it's more than just tax increases. We've done all manner of things to bring more money into the district without raising taxes. It's something I'm very proud of, and I think we've been very professional about it. So anyway, I thought I'd mention that, but I'll be supporting this because it's a reasonable target between 4 and 5. So thank you.
Councillor Lerner, and then we'll go to second-time speakers, which I've got myself down for.
Thank you, Your Worship. I concur with something that the mayor mentioned, which is that we can always, we do need more money. Like, there's no doubt about that in my mind, that we can always use more money. And if we wanted to repave every road in Lantzville, it would probably be $100 million, I think. So I don't have a problem with the notion that we need more money, but there's only so much that each taxpayer can bear each year. Most people are not getting huge raises every year. Between 2018 and 2022, the tax increase was a cumulative 67%. And I can speak for myself when I say I campaigned on keeping the tax increases reasonable and affordable for the community. The 0% and 0% were the amount that we charged, an increase to existing taxpayers. We also did get new revenue from new builds. And then in 2025, we did a 3% increase plus the new builds. And then this time we're talking about between 4 and 5% plus the new builds. There's another about, I think, estimated at 1.5%. In the committee of the whole meeting, it was discussed that the 6.5% included a new staff position for admin. And in the committee of the whole, we asked staff if that position was removed, the additional admin position, could we maintain everything else that we wanted to do at 4 to 5%. We just wouldn't add that one position on. And the answer was yes. So essentially what we're doing is approving all of staff's, we're not finalizing the budget tonight, but with 4 to 5%, we're achieving all of the recommended amounts except for that position. So I think this is very reasonable. I think 6.5 is not, it's not bad. It's something the community could use, 6.5%. I just don't think people can afford it right now. And I think 4 to 5% is affordable. So we'll see what comes back. And if council at that time decides we want to throw money in reserves, we can always increase from the budget and put it all in reserves, or we can see what staff come back with. It could be cut, but I think between 4 and 5 is very reasonable. We have a very long agenda, so I won't speak again on this topic, but I support the motion.
Okay, so I got myself down again. So a couple things to unpack there. You know, every year there's always non-market change or new build monies that go into our budget and help fund, things within the community. So, whether it was last term and the 67% compound increase, or this term's 3% compound increase over 3 years, both terms have been using non-market change monies to fund, capital or operational expenditures in the municipality. The one thing I think, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding the 6.5 was prepared anticipation that maybe all this council will tolerate, in terms of having an increase. So I think we have to get realistic about what we have in our budget. It's I look at the roads specifically, and my understanding is we're gonna have to start borrowing money to do Dickinson. Like, we're not flushing money. I know Councillor Savage went on, about all these other sources of potential monies that are rolling in. And yeah, sure, we have water connection fees. I'm very well aware of that. But, those are for specific uses with respect to water. You can't use those monies to go and start building road. Anyways, I don't like the path we're going down. We can direct staff to do whatever, we want them to, or what council wants them to do for us. But, the 4 to 5%, I just don't think is enough. Do I want to take more money out of taxpayers' pockets? Absolutely not. But again, I've come to the harsh realization when we have 3 years where the compound increase is 3%. And when we look at, what the capital or the inflation on capital projects is being, it's just astronomical. It just doesn't catch up. Councillor Savage speaks of, we purchased some property, it's a potential investment. We're using monies for that the Growing Communities Fund, which we have to repay back to that fund. I don't know how much profit we're going to get out of it, but is it going to be a ton of profit? I don't know. But is it going to pave even a few of our roads? Don't think so. But that money we have to repay minus, and I'll just correct myself, minus the valuation of what the parkland would cost. But the rest of the monies have to be recovered and put back into the Growing Communities Fund. So, yeah, I just, anyway, so we'll leave it there. I believe I see where this is going, so I won't waste any more time speaking to it. But again, I strongly oppose it, and I don't want to deliver more tax increases to residents. But it's, again, following 3 years of pretty much no increases, or pretty much next to no increases, relatively speaking. It's bound to happen, and it's the numbers being presented are not going to be enough, in my opinion. And I am relying on the professional opinions of our staff with respect to this. So, okay, through the rest of the council, before I call the question. Okay, hearing nothing, I'll move to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed, no, Mayor Swain's opposed, carries. Takes us on to motion 4. So we have the Committee of the Whole recommendation with respect to water rates. Is someone prepared to make this motion? Go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
That council directs staff to increase the water user rate by 5% in 2026.
Okay, I'll second that. And then for discussion? Nothing? Okay. And then for myself, I have nothing. This seems reasonable. So through the rest of the council, Councillor Savage.
Yes, just to underline, we spoke about this in the Committee of the Whole, that this is a necessary increase to cover actual cost. It's always been that way. So as operational costs go up, the commensurate rates have to go up, and it's extremely important that we don't fail to maintain the water system. It's key to keeping things and homes going in Lantzville. So It's not bad, 5% increase. It's not been increased that much over the years. And don't forget that 5%, it's not like a tax increase where it's 5% on 3.4 million. This is 5% on a much smaller amount that people pay. So I'll be supporting it.
Any additional speakers? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, it's carried unanimously. Takes us to motion 5. So it has to do with the sewer rates. Anybody willing to make this motion? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
Sure, that council direct staff to increase the sewer rate by 3% in 2026.
Okay, I'll second that. And then for discussion? Okay, again, for myself, this is pretty self-explanatory and reasonable with respect to increasing costs. So any additional speakers? Okay, I will move to call in the question. All those in favor, opposed, that's carried unanimously. It takes us on to motion 6, which has to do with the proposed road maintenance. So this was referred to this meeting. So it was in, so that was the recommendation, is to simply refer it and then to get a motion on the floor, if that's what council chooses to do, to have a discussion and vote. So, Councillor Lerner?
Just a procedural question. The road maintenance program is in a different agenda item on our agenda. So it was, when the committee passed this referral, it appears in our agenda as an item. So I don't know if this motion, if I need, do we need to pass this motion as well? Or I'm trying to find where I am.
Yeah.
Because would that not refer it another time? Or maybe I'm wrong.
Your worship, if I may.
Yes.
At the committee of the whole, it was a report for council's information, but we didn't get an opportunity to talk about it during the committee of the whole, so we added it to this agenda as well.
Okay, so I don't need to move a motion, or?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay, because 9D, I think, 9D.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it doesn't really matter which, yeah, so I was looking the wrong way in the agenda, but we can deal with it now. So
And
did staff have anything further to introduce this, with respect to this?
Sorry, your worship, you wanted me to speak to the report right now? Is that
Well,
what you're asking?
it's in 2 places in our agenda, but it would make sense to just continue the discussion we're
Okay.
having.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just gotta flip to it. Just take me a second here.
Yeah, I put it on my laptop.
So the purpose of the report was to bring to council's attention that administration is recommending an establishment of a formal annual road maintenance program to address pavement deterioration, improve public safety, and extend the life of the municipality's road network. This is going to be an investment over time, and as this would, if council approves, would be the first year of this program. The program is to establish 3 different things. So one thing we already do, which is a cold mix pothole repair, and we do have a contractor that does that. The second part that we don't have is crack sealing. Crack sealing benefits the pavement by extending, it's possible it can extend the life, but you'll get your expected useful life out of it for sure. And most communities do crack sealing. This isn't anything new. I'm sure council's well aware of this. And then the last component is the large asphalt patching. So you might notice that there's sometimes a group of potholes together, and it starts to get a lot larger than just cold mix. So you'd saw cut it and you'd lay out large portions of asphalt, and then you know, the machines roll it. You've seen that in Nanaimo tons of times. Everybody has. And what we'd be targeting is areas that have repeated failure. Edge breakdowns and base failures would also be addressed, and areas that are not scheduled in the near-term capital reconstruction. So it's to help get the roads across to their, like some of the older roads that you might see alligatored. In speaking with our Public Works crew, I'd asked them if they had such a program, where would they target? And there were several areas on Lantzville Road. There was Olds was brought up as well. And then some of the ones that we have that are chip seal were also brought up. So those kinds of roads would be looked at in this. We have the new project manager. I've started discussions with him on how the money would play out. Right now, it's in the budget for $240,000, but I did give you guys an example of what a $200,000 program would be. In the budget for 2025, we had on the general fund, we had approximately $17,000. So this would be a significant increase in investment on the community's behalf. But again, it would go a long way in establishing good asset management and good sustainability for the roads in the long term. That's what I wanted. Any
Great,
questions?
thank you. And through to council, any questions? Councillor Mundell?
Just, I am no road maintenance expert by any means, but how is the patch or pothole different than chip seal? And what are the cost differences?
Well, chip seal isn't pavement, isn't traditional pavement. So what they do is they layer gravel and then they spread the adhesive on the gravel. So chip seal isn't asphalt where it's cooked in a big heated containment unit and then laid out by trucks and then compacted by the guys you see on the big steamrollers. So one requires less maintenance than the other one. Chip seal requires a bit more maintenance because it's not as sturdy and doesn't have as long as lifespan as asphalt does.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, additional questions? Go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a motion, but since it's not, I'll just point out that what a great idea this is. I thought we were doing this all along, but it appears that we weren't. And the reason it's so effective and such a good idea is that it fills the gap for these long waits we have between replacing roads. It means it's a more effective interim while they're waiting to be replaced. So congratulations, through chair to staff. Whose idea was this, may I ask? Is it? Oh, well done. Excellent idea. And as I say, I thought it was always being done, this approach, Director Sapola. So well done. I strongly support it. I think it's a great solution to our roads while we're waiting to replace them. Thank you.
Just as a point of clarification, I thought we were always doing the cold mix pothole repairs. Is that correct?
Yes, we do the cold mix.
Yeah, and then
we
there
have
was-
done it for a long time.
Wasn't there an issue with the budget though? Like when we were underfunded?
It was underfunded. It was cut from, in 2025, it was cut from 35,000 to 17,000 in the 2025 budget. So in actuality, that budget line has been overrun because we just couldn't run an effective pothole mix or the cold mix this year. And in talks with the men, it was like, we need to continue to maintain some of these big, you can't just ignore them, so they had to go fill them. And, but we handled that with the low snow events. So we only had one snow event in 2025. So as a whole, that envelope is not overrun.
And then from that whole, whatever experience with the underfunding of the cold mix pothole repair stuff, that's how you came up with this, is that right?
Yeah, that and one of the things when I was in public accounting is I had a really good mentor, and he was always a proponent of learn the business of the people that you're working for, like your client's business. So, I mean, I'll drive around and I'll look and see what's out there and listen to the complaints and go through the complaints and because I find that the public will tell you what they want if you pay attention, and roads comes up quite a lot. So in order to address, and council's opinions too matter, and reading through the motions, council seemed very focused on roads. So I thought this would be a good program to introduce in this community.
Okay, and my last question just has to do with, is the recommendation to get this underway for 2026? And if so, then what would be the implications to our budget?
I've put in the 240 portion of the, I reestablished the cold mix to a $40,000 level through taxation, and then I added 200,000 in from a transfer from the road reserve. When I added the transfer in from the road reserve, in my report, I do point out that the reserve funding impact is, that it does have a negative impact on that reserve. It does take it down quite a bit. And I've been searching for potential revenue options in funding this program outside of the reserve, because the reserve we obviously need for capital replacement. As the mayor alluded to, we are going to be, I do propose to borrow in the capital plan $1.9 million for Dickinson Road, simply because the road reserve doesn't have enough money to cover all of Dickinson project. So likely borrowing for the second phase of Dickinson. In discussion with the engineer, we have been talking about 2 stages and possibly 3 to make sure that it is sustainable over the long term, because sometimes you just have to wait for the money to come back into the bank account through transfers to reserves. And being that the project is at 4.5 million is the last estimate that we got, and for the road as well as the box culvert, you know, we want to be as conservative as we can and make sure that the money is there. So being that this is the first year of the proposed road maintenance program, I wanted to sit down with the PM and go through and do some cataloging, and I've asked him to already start to drive through the community and with the Public Works crew and point out some of the larger areas that may need attention for this and would be good candidates for this program. But again, drawing down 200,000 a year from the transportation reserve isn't the best idea, but it's the one that we have right now. In other communities, what we've done is we had increased taxes to directly offset and pay for these kinds of programs. It might be, and that's why I'm looking for other revenues to fund it and just to see what's out there. And I'm still on a bit of a learning curve in what is possible with the with parcel taxes and things like that. I want to just make sure that you know, I investigate thoroughly. I'm hoping to bring back more options for council in 2027 when we look at the budget again in that cycle.
Okay, thank you for all that. Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Thank you. So through chair to staff, I just wanted to quickly give my input on that. You gave an overview of the budget for the road reserve, and one of the things that's just been draining it are these culverts. So we had the Ware Road culvert, that was way up there, and this one on Dickinson Road being around 700,000. It takes the place of replacing a road. It's so expensive. So just one tip from me is that if we could possibly do an overview of all the culverts and do the road at the same time, because Coors told us at the last meeting that it is less expensive to replace culverts as part of replacing the road instead of doing it in an isolated fashion. So that's a lot of where our road reserve went. And even in this budget, we have the Rumming Road culvert, the Lantzville Road Bloods Creek culvert, and the Alger Road culvert, and eventually the Dickinson Road culvert at Bloods Creek. So there's 4 right there that add up huge time. Those 4 alone will probably be in the neighborhood of 2 million plus. So I just thought I'd point that out as part of our road reserve. That's a major expense, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Lerner and then myself.
So I just had a question about the process here. Now that we've received the report, is it is the idea to make the motion on this agenda item or on, keep it on 9D?
Well, if we deal with it here, then we don't have, there's no motion particularly on 9D. It's just listed
Okay.
as a agenda item
Sure.
topic.
Then,
It's for information.
oh, I see. So at this point, through your worship to staff, is there a vote needed of council in order to move forward with this, or is it just part of the budget that we're going to be approving anyway?
It's part of the budget process, and it was for, originally I presented it at committee of the whole for general discussion from council for, and just let you know what was in the plans. That's why, when it was referred to this meeting, just taking the opportunity, and it's just for information that'll inform the budget decision later.
Sure, sure. Then if I can just have the discussion with council, I'm fully supportive of this program. I'm glad to see that it's in the budget. I think it's proactive. The more proactive we can be, the less we need to spend upfront or in the end run on a replacement. I just want us to also see as we go into things what we can do to have the most accurate estimates to inform our budgeting process for capital with the roads and the road maintenance program, so that when they're out there doing these repairs. And the reason I say that is I'm looking here on the district website at the 2021 capital plan, and I wasn't there at the council table at that time. I can't speak to exactly what those discussions were, but the estimate for the Dickinson Road culvert between Jackson and Lavender in 2022 was 50,000. And it came out about 750,000. So my hope is that when we go through, that we can get as close to accurate numbers as we do this road maintenance, that things are noted, just because otherwise we could be setting aside too little or too much, or well, too little, too much wouldn't be a problem, but yeah, I love the idea of the program. Thank you.
Yeah, for myself, again, like this would be the time if council did not want to see that program being implemented, to make the recommendation to, remove it from the financial plan. But it sounds like it's council supporting it. I support it. It makes sense, but I think this discussion has illuminated the fact that our road reserves will be completely depleted, and to the point where we have to borrow $1.9 million, and then we still have other projects stacking up beyond that. So, it's just important to recognize that, and also that, I know there's been a shuffling of money, but, to the road reserves for this budget, but, we're just under 200,000 now for the road reserve contribution, and then I forget how it was done, but Director Spola could probably speak to it, but another 100,000 was going to be reallocated to that reserve. But then all of a sudden now we're taking 200,000 out of that reserve. So it's a bit of a shell game, but the net result is we're I think going to be really underfunded in the next couple of years in our road reserves. Hence the reason why we will have to borrow. I don't think we've ever had to borrow in Lantzville for roads. So, that's we'll again have to continue looking at this, and any additional monies that we can put into that road reserves is desperately needed. So, Councillor Lerner.
Thank you. I agree that we need to increase the road reserve as much as possible, and I know that we're not dealing with reserves right now, but I just wanted to note that when I started on council and we were given our first budget, Dickinson Road was estimated at about between $1 and $2 million. And it's in the past year and a half, that has increased to $4.5 million. We had already authorized Dickinson Road work to begin the first year of our term. Now, if that had proceeded when we authorized it originally, if it had come in less, I know the construction index is like 12%, but even then, when we first looked at spreading it out into phases, that reserve was going to be in the red, and there was talk of borrowing. But I do acknowledge that Dickinson Road is going to be a very expensive project, and I recommend that we continue to find ways to fund that and our road reserve. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Savage.
Yeah, since we're wrapping this up, I just wanted to ask you, Mayor Swain, we skipped over agenda item 9A. Was that moved to elsewhere in the agenda, or?
No, we're just finishing on 10. I guess it would be A, subsection 6, motion 6.
Oh, so we're going back to item 9 at some point?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, we're just still dealing with the agenda reorg. Okay. All right, so there's no motions being made here, so that's fine. At this point, we will move back to item 9A. So this is the capital plan. So through to Director Sepola.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this capital plan is for discussion. Administration has highlighted the items that it feels are priority in yellow. I've split it out into the 3 funds as we did for the operating. The green section is the general fund, the orange section is the sewer fund, and the blue section is the water fund. Anything that's grant dependent appears at the bottom of the list, namely the new fire hall, the Harwood water reservoir expansion, and the tennis court rehabilitation. Would council have any questions, or do you want to just move through each item and hear the explanation in detail? And
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to express some challenges I've been having, and perhaps there's a way to address them in the future. Now looking at 3 copies of the capital plan, I call them old, new, and newer, but I'm wondering if they could be dated when they come to us, so that we have clarity there. And I'm also wondering if you wouldn't mind just summarizing changes, because each one of these capital plans has changes. Some of them it would be nice if they were brought to council's attention. It's a lot of work to go through and try to figure out where the changes are, especially when the ordering has been redone. So if we can help out in the future that way, I would appreciate it. I also wonder if you could make some comments on the general strategy of staff in these recommendations. Our first plan came in at $42,398,516 as a 4-year plan. That went up about $2 million in the second version we got of the capital plan, and it's gone up again insignificantly since then. But there's been a lot of shuffling around of some things being put in 2026 to the point where 2026 work has become quite heavy compared to the 2027 work. It seems like, I don't know how this ends up being achievable from your perspective. I've heard already about borrowing money, but I'm just wondering what the staff strategy was here. If you could speak to that, thank you.
certainly, thank you, Councillor, for your questions. So some of the reasons for the changes in the increase of the overall plan were as numbers became better. When better numbers started coming in, I started changing the plan accordingly. I will track that, though, in the future as I make those changes, as you suggest, and I will date these. Sorry about the reordering. I thought this might be a bit more clear as to where things were coming from, because I know council does have concerns about what is funded by taxes and what is funded by utility service fees. So I thought it was a bit more helpful, but I will highlight some of the changes. One of the changes was for the public workshop. It went from $1 million to 1.2 million. The Dickinson Road rehabilitation originally was only $50,000 to continue in design. When I noted that council seemed to be ready to go on this, I wanted to move it up in accordance with what I was kind of hearing from the table. So I moved it for construction in this year as opposed to just design work. So I did move that forward. Some of the culverts were very low priced when I first got it. I put in the original amounts, and as we know from some of the discussions that we had previous to this with the which road was that? That was Phantom Road chip seal overlay. The paving on that was tremendously more than what we had anticipated. It was almost double. So then I really started digging into the numbers to make sure that I was giving council better numbers. I'm not fond of coming back and asking for council to give us more money on things, so I just wanted to make sure you guys had the most accurate information that I could supply for sure. And then a couple of the other changes were on the new fire engine, or in the original budget, it was split 600 in 2026 and then another 600 in 2028. And at first, it looked like two separate engines to me, but on discussing that with the fire chief, I found out that it was one engine, but it's likely we're only going to have to put down a deposit in 2026. But I will have to encumber the money in 2026 to make sure that I can make the payment in 2028. So I put the whole thing in for 2026, so council knows that that reserve money has been encumbered and it wouldn't be able to be spent anyplace else. So I did move that 600 in there. And some of the other things that were happening were the water main replacement for Lynn Millard, the tender came through for that, and that increased that number quite a lot. The wellfield study and protection enhancement program, I was getting some feedback from the operators in the field of regulations that we needed to meet, and some of those things were then introduced into this project, into this capital plan as it stands today. So there were quite a few changes, and I will track those for council next time. Thank you, I will get that done. And I will put dates on these things and possibly version numbers. I know that I track the operating with version numbers. I'll do that with the capital plan in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. And the other thing, sort of, probably might be viewed as rather naive question from somebody, but I'm not a financial expert. I look at this total for 2026 of $34,875,311 to be spent, and I can't figure it out. Where's that money going to come from? How much are we gonna have to borrow of that if we were to actually do this?
Well, when we look at the grant-dependent items, that alone is $12,400,000. So I mean, if we get the grants and those come through, we do have the funding modeling in place for those, you know, and there's a lot more discussion to be had on the fire hall, which I've heard from council on a number of occasions. But maybe those discussions are a bit premature right now, as being that we won't know if we have the grant until likely March. At that time, and the chief came specifically for that discussion, and anything else, any other questions you might want to ask him. But the information coming back on some of the fire halls has been interesting, to say the least. But you have to get it down to what exactly are the fire halls getting. Like, there was a new announcement for a fire hall in Comox, and they were putting $6 million up, and it was called a new fire hall in the news release, but it isn't actually a new fire hall. It's a refurb of the administration area. So, I mean, you gotta be careful, and you gotta make sure that you dig into it and find out what exactly it is that you're looking at. So again, providing council with accurate numbers, and also, as well, we kept the 13.7 in there because that was the amount that we had sent in for the grant application. So I didn't wanna change anything and maybe trigger something with the grant award. The 9,296,000 is with the Winds area water system. We do have 5.3 or 5.2 left to spend there because there has been some money spent in that. You know, I mean, there is quite a lot that's going into that, and we're still cobbling the money together, I guess, if that's a good word to use, to make sure that that grant moves forward and that water line, we're trying to do our best to make sure that that water line goes through. So between the 17 million and the 9.2, that takes up quite a lot of that 34,000, because I was asking myself the exact same question. Can we get all this done this year, or are we biting off more than we can chew? Some of these items are ordering, it's spread out over a number of people to manage. And I believe that the number is fair, and given the amount of projects that have been held over from 24 and 25, 26 will be challenging, but the CAO has brought in a project manager to help us, so I'm hoping that he'll look after the infrastructure, and the equipment and things like that will be evenly dispersed through the rest of us.
Quick follow-up for that. Thank you very much. So I figured that out, that you take out all the grant-dependent items and you're still left with about 17 million. So I don't know if there's a way, perhaps at the next meeting, that you can just provide a little bit more clarity as to how this is doable, 17 million. I know a lot of reserves are going to be depleted. There may be the money there, but then presumably there's a plan for replenishing them again. So this doesn't have to be a discussion for now if council doesn't, I want to go there tonight, and if it's a big ask for you, but perhaps we could dig into it a bit deeper later. Thank
Yeah,
you.
CO Lasher?
I think staff would prefer to dig into it now because we're very limited on legislated time we have to start approving the 5-year plan, the capital plan, the tax rates bylaw. All that has to be done by March. And today is January 28th, so we got to start digging into all the questions that council has in order to meet our legislative requirements.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, then, do I need to make a motion asking for a staff report on how the 17 million, or whatever the exact number is that's slated for 2026 is going to be achieved, and what the debt incurred will be, and the loaning amounts as well?
CO Lasher?
I believe the director has most of that information, and she would be able to answer majority of the questions because that's what we've been working on, is those reserves and borrowing versus what council wants us to do. It's kind of like the cart before the horse. If we know what council wants, we can tell you how we're going to do it. But unless we know what council wants, we can't tell you how we're going to do it. So now's the time to answer those questions and ask the questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Thank you for being so patient with me. I suggest then that we go to specific items on the capital plan to give that guidance to staff. And if, for me personally, I would like it in writing. I can't digest it, that kind of important information verbally, and there'll be a lot of numbers. So if we could have it sent to council, Director Sapola, if that's possible, sometime in the near future, that'd be great. Because you will need information from tonight when we go over the individual items to make further modifications. Thank you.
Okay, I believe I had Councillor Savage and Councillor Lerner.
Yes, in answer to that, your answer to your question, Councillor Jones, it's beautifully laid out in the January 21st spreadsheet. It gives for every single capital item, it shows exactly what reserve it's coming out of and how it's being funded. So we already have all that information. And I've gone through that carefully, and a great job it really is of getting it all organized like that. It's really clear this year, the budget to me. And I just wanted to say, entirely up to council, but I've offered this to you on a sheet that I handed out, how you want to approach. This is about 35 items in here. On page 131 of our agenda, the capital items, and I've clumped it together in 26 of them into one motion to save time, but only if you want to do it that way. And how I clump them is all these items are ones that we normally have approved in the past without too much debate. Everything from fire hydrants to replacing roads to radio replacement, tires for engines, that sort of thing. But if you'd rather do it line by line, it's absolutely fine to me. I just took the trouble doing this because when you approve 26 with some discussion, it takes a big clump out of the 35 out of the equation, and it's really a time saver. But up to you, and I passed one to Director Wells there too. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lerner.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I'm totally fine with doing them in grouped motions, because as going through 35 motions would be a lot. But I just had some questions to the staff about specific items. Dickinson Road, I think I already got an answer to this, but Dickinson Road rehabilitation, in the previous iteration of the capital plan, it listed 50,000 for this year for design, and now it's 1.25 million. I assume that's to get the project shovels in the ground this year, is that, yeah?
That's correct. Sorry, that's correct. It shovels in the ground this year. So we'd be progressing through design. And one of the things about Dickinson Road that I wanted to stress for council is the decision on the pathway. When you've seen the presentation from Coors, their recommendation for cost effectiveness is south side. There's less interaction with driveways. There's an opportunity there for some green infrastructure, which council has stressed in a few meetings. And I wanted to, and I've stressed it on behalf of council with Coors as well, that just to try and keep it effective, efficient, make sure that it's best bang for our buck. Just replacing what's there is costing just over 4.5 right now. We've got, and that includes the culvert, as Councillor Savage had indicated. We needed to replace that one, and that's going to be done at the same time that the road is being replaced. So that's one thing that he's waiting for, is direction from staff to give to them to put in the design work. One of the things that we've had in the past with Coors is what they've done is they've had Project 1 and Project 2 in a tender document, where Project 1 was the main body of what we wanted to achieve, and then we had them also tender for Project 2 that may or may not be part of a component depending on how the pricing came back. So we could do that or could request that. It costs a little bit more money because they still have to design it, but we need to hear back from council. And I know it's a bit controversial, but it would be nice to have that to go back to council or to go back to Coors to finish off the design and then produce the documents for tender and move through to tendering.
Thank you. In that case, my recommendation on Dickinson Road would be to approve the funding in the budget. The design is not on tonight's agenda, though, so my recommendation is at our next council meeting. I know we had approved that option A, which is probably no longer relevant, so we would probably have to rescind that and then approve whatever it is the council approves. My next question, if I may, on these items is through to, I already had that answered. Okay, water main replacement, Millard Lynn, Lantzville Road. I'm under the impression that's already gone to tender, so essentially that is coming entirely out of the water fund and was already tendered, is that correct?
Yeah, it's already tendered and it's already awarded, so it'll be underway as construction for this year.
Thank you. Similarly, I think in the email it was indicated Rumming Road, basically it will be within 6 weeks, will be ready to go to bids.
Yeah, we'll be hopefully getting it out to tender right away. That one was a carry forward for 2025 and was as part of that. So we should be able to get it all the way through to tender and be able to get tenders back and that'll be after the capital plan has been approved. It is a Class B estimate, so it's within 10 to 15% either way.
Great, thank you. And then just to follow up, of these items in the water fund that are related to, I don't know if this can be done in an open meeting or an in-camera meeting, but they seem to have come out of, it was mentioned in the committee of, the last meeting, inspection recommendations. I don't know if that's something that can be discussed now or if we have to wait till an in-camera meeting.
Which one are we talking about?
I
in
was
the
just
water
wondering,
fund?
there was just a number of them that, like, for example, the well field security and protection enhancement,
Yeah.
those sorts of things. Those are all regulatory or?
Those came out of the inspection that we just had done, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I've just got
Point
myself.
of
Yeah,
clarification,
what's your
if
point
I
of
may.
Yeah.
I think Director Savage had this motion, I guess it wasn't moved, that we pass this list, removing ones that we want to remove in the course of discussion, and then pass it, what is remaining, so that we can get that done quickly. Are we, what's happened with that? I don't feel that that's what we're doing right now.
Well, it's not really a point of clarification for starters, and that's, yeah, and I've got myself down as a next speaker, so.
Okay, so there's
you
no
can-
motion on the floor
There's no
then?
motion on the floor, no. So for myself, you know, speaking to specifically the Dickinson Road rehab, the 1.2, or 1,250,000. I think with respect to the motion around that originally, it was to bring the information back to council. It wasn't committing to any one design. So I think this council should be making that recommendation this evening to get on with it. It was pretty clear from Coors with respect to what the recommendation is. It's Dickinson Road is a horrible road to deal with from an engineering standpoint. Trying to do any meaningful pathways any which way is dearly going to cost us. I think council has learned tonight we are broke. And once again, you know, we're going to have to borrow money to do this. We've never had to do that in Lantzville's history for road replacement, not that I'm aware of. So I'm prepared to, you know, support a recommendation this evening that we just move ahead with phase one of the Dickinson Road rehab on doing the path on the south side of the road or the high side of the road. Staff needs this information in order to proceed. If we don't act soon, before you know it, nothing's going to happen this year because we'll probably miss the paving window, and there's a lot of work that needs to happen in order to even get us to a point where they start doing shovels on the ground work. So we got to get on this. So I'll leave it there. Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you. So I would very much like to support the funding for Dickinson Road with the understanding that the design has not been finalized. You made a comment, Mayor Swain, that you personally supported the path on the south side of the road. I have come to the position where I do not support the path on the south side of the road, the reasons being that we will not get much in the way of green engineering there, and green infrastructure has been a priority of ours, as has maintaining our ditch system, which is there to provide that. So I would prefer not to, because the fact is a lot of ditches will be filled and pipes put in the ground in order to achieve that path. That's the information we received. So I can't support it on the south side, and I understand that on the north side it's just way too complex. So I would be tempted to ask council and Coors Engineering to consider just doing what they can do in the way of asphalt to the right of the white line on the north side. And then pedestrians will be able to do what they have been doing already, which is a bit of, you know, using the space where it is and moving along Dickinson that way, but they will have a larger asphalt space protecting them from the vehicle traffic. So it's not ideal. Nothing's going to be ideal. It's going to be too expensive, but that's where I've landed for a potential solution. So I look forward to discussing that with council and hearing what Coors has to say about it in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Savage?
Yes, sorry, Mayor Swain, I just don't want that going on the record that Lantzville is broke. We're not broke in any
Well, in my opinion,
way,
we are,
shape,
Councillor
or,
Savage.
shape or
So
form. So to give the example, we could put 15 or 10 roads to repair on this budget, and we wouldn't have enough money to cover that. That doesn't mean we're broke. It's a matter of meeting what we choose to do and finding the funds to do it. So I don't think that's a good statement to make. I dispute that public statement so that people say, oh, Lantzville's broke. I would disagree with that characterization. And also, I'm just wondering, please, if we're going to debate these things, if we could do it under the umbrella of a motion. I'm ready to start going through these, and I'll leave it up to you, Mayor Swain, to conduct this how you want to do it, either line by line or using what I've said. I've got a clump of them here to speed things up. I'll leave it up to council and yourself. Thank you. And I'm ready to go on this. Thank you.
okay, CEO Lasher?
Just following on the Dickinson Road, to replace what we currently have, is $4.5 million. To add a path to the north side is gonna be a minimum $500,000 cost based on the 32 driveways. So if we want to start work on Dickinson Road, we must go back to Coors with the definitive design proposal. So either we say, please design the north side, or please design the south side. We can't go in and say, design both sides, and then we pay double the design costs. Now, Coors made it very clear last week that the easiest, cheapest solution is the south side. So if council wants us to spend minimum $500,000 more, we will definitely go to Coors and tell them to design the north side. But I want to be very transparent that the cheap way is to replace what's already there. And if you want a path, keep it on the south side. These are engineering professionals who are licensed. Nobody here is a licensed engineering professional. And we don't want to carry that liability of making motions that are in conflict with the engineer's recommendations.
Councillor Jones, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. So just to be totally clear on what I said, I was saying that I support no path on the south side and no additional pathway on the north side either, but to maximize the asphalt space to the right of the white line on the north side only. And there is space already there, which is sometimes asphalt, sometimes just gravel, but Coors can figure out what kind of space there is there. Just to maximize that, that will be helpful. I'm just trying to keep the costs down. There is actually a lot of space in between these driveways for pedestrians to walk, so I think they'll have to continue to do so as they have been doing, but they should be able to do so, I hope, with a little bit more space, defined asphalt space before they see that white line. Does that make sense to you?
I'm taking notes. I'll write that down. It's basically just, you're asking for road widening?
Just
Pavement widening?
leave the south side of the road as it is, maintaining the ditch system. The north side of the road already has a white line, and it's kind of jagged. Some places it's 3 feet, and some places it's half a foot. So just for them to take a look and see where there is that space for asphalt. I'm not asking
Okay.
for the road space to be widened, because that space between the white lines that vehicles use will remain the same. They made that clear in their emails. They cannot take away from that space.
Yeah.
So
they-
this is
they
just
done it, yeah.
district property beside the road that may be available. They will
Okay.
have to look at that and
So-
make their determination.
Keep the roadway the same and try to just accommodate better safety for the pedestrians. 'Cause
Just
I'm-
what I said,
Yeah, I'll go back to the recording and I'll.
it's not technically a pedestrian space to the right of the white line. So I'm avoiding
Yeah.
saying to use that space for pedestrians. Pedestrians will be separated from the road by that space, which will be a little bit greater than it is now.
Okay.
Yeah, where possible.
Okay, Councillor Lerner and then myself.
So I'm just digesting what's been said by staff and council around the table. Sounds like some of us are preferring to have, everyone here seems to want to repave the road. Some people want to have no path, some people want to have a path on the south side. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Maybe I'm hearing that wrong, but that's kind of like, because I want to see a path on the south side. I'm hearing some people saying they want to have no path. But, so, whatever it happens to be. There was something Director Sapola said about getting, because the next step is that they have to go and design it. And there seemed to be something where you could, that Director Sapola said, where you could design the road the way Councillor Jones is mentioning, where it's just no path, and they adjust, and they, fix up the white line where they can. And then you could also have a second component of the design that's the path. And then when it goes out to tender, we would find out what the price is for the road and what the price is for the road plus path. And if the path is too expensive, we just don't proceed with that. That's my preference, is to have them essentially design the road the way Councillor Jones is talking about with no path, and then also get built into the design an option for a path. And then we would, because if the path is an extra 100,000, I would say, why not? But if the path is an extra 2 million, we can't afford that. So that's sort of my preference, because then at least we give clear direction to Coors to go and do what Councillor Jones has mentioned, which is no path, but to include that option. Anyway, that's where I'll leave it.
Okay, so I have myself next. Yeah, I'm ultimately starting to get really confused here because I don't have the designs in front of me. I'm just basically going with the recommendation from the engineer, which was to do basically repave the road with some improvements on the south side to improve the walkability. I think that's worded something to that effect. So it's not like creating a path to the right, anyways, I think that's really what is the recommendation. So I feel like things are getting made confused now because there's all these different ideas getting thrown out, and I think it's pretty simple. We follow the recommendation from the engineer, which is the most, cost friendly, and not worry about entertaining any other designs, because any other designs is just gonna result in more time and money and delay. So, for me, it's just like, we need to just make a decision, and that's to go with a design, or what's being recommended by the engineers. And the design is basically resurface it. There's some improvements on the right side. I believe we were informed about, there'd be some ditches that would be maybe, put in a culvert. It's not the end of the world. It's not like we're putting culverts in every single ditch in Lantzville. But, and then even when we look at what the function of those are, it's a different story anyways. But anyways, I just feel like it's getting so made confusing now that unless we have the actual diagrams or the designs that were presented to us last week in front of us, I just say, maybe we just refer this item to the next meeting so we actually have the designs. Well, I know I don't want to do that, but okay, CO Lasher.
So.
We need clarity. That's-
Exactly. So the way it works is council says, yes, go to design. We get the design for you. But if council cannot make that recommendation tonight, we're not starting any project on Dickinson Road till we have permission to go to design. Once we go to design, we'll come back to you with the design, but we need the permission to go to design.
Okay, so my follow-up comment to that is council should just simply authorize the design. If council is just grossly unimpressed with the design at that point, when we get it back, then that's when we can send it back and get modifications made. But to me, it feels like we're just continually making changes and asking for things to happen or be different and so on. I know there's a strong interest for north side improvements and so forth, but we've heard that's just not a great option. So I just think we should be proceeding ahead with a design. And again, when we get it back, then we can deal with that at that point. So I don't know who was next, but Councillor Jones and then Councillor Savage.
Yes, so I understand from Director Lasher that it'd be really helpful to have direction tonight. And looking at what the least expensive option is, it's not the road with a pathway on the south side of the road. It is a road without a pathway on the south side of the road. Would you agree, Director Lasher? Thank you. So I am willing to support a design that has that. I personally am not in favor of the pathway on the south side of the road because it's not the where the usage is, the users want to be. They're primarily coming from the residences on the north side of the road, walking along the road and then going back down to their homes or back down to the beach. That's the walk. We have a crosswalk at Orr Road for those who want to move there, but to accommodate those people without inconveniencing them is absolutely impossible. They will simply be wanting to cross the road wherever they come to the road from, whether it be Lavender, Jacks, Myron, or any of the other roads. And that is going to generate safety issues with people who are wanting to cross the road in order to get on this path that has recently been built. So that is one of my reasons for not supporting it. The other one is that we will lose green infrastructure if we start putting a path on the side. Coors has made that very clear. There are sections which will be changed. That will come at another expense. So again, the cost goes up, and it also goes at the expense of the environment, in that the ditches have an environmental value. So if we can proceed with a plan that is just resurfacing the road and putting more asphalt to the right of the white line on the north side where there is space, not without huge construction costs, I think what we see we might be quite happy with. There will still be space for pedestrians to walk as they are now, and it will be a nicer space for them. And that's why, Councillor Lerner, I wasn't comfortable with you saying no pathway, because there will be pathway opportunities for people with that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Savage.
Yes, thank you. I didn't come prepared tonight to be discussing the design of one project of 35. It's not on the agenda. We were given the Coors handout at the meeting, last meeting, and so I didn't have a chance to read it before then to make a decision, and I haven't looked at it for tonight because it's not on the agenda, so I would propose that we leave this till the next meeting so that we can, and just one last question, please, on this through chair to CAO Lasher. Did you say it's $500,000 to put a pathway on the south side? Or?
No, I said on the north side, based on the driveways that need to be cut up, it's minimum 500,000 because of all the 32 driveways that need to be cut up. So I think Councillor Lerner makes an important point that I really need to point out. You can do two sets of drawings. One is to refurbish the road the way it is, and the second is to parcel out the pathway. And what Councillor Lerner is saying makes sense. You bring both back to council, and then council makes the decision, okay, we just want to resurface, or we want to resurface the road with the pathway. But if you keep delaying this decision, then we do nothing. And I want to make that very clear. We literally do nothing till you tell us to move forward and design. And I highly recommend us moving forward to design so we don't miss the window of construction, because it has to go to design, it has to go to tender, then we have to find time to get the work done. This is a huge process, and it has to start with the design.
All right, so what I would suggest then is doing it for the next meeting with some rough costs, and maybe they could have the designs ready for us next meeting, at least some rough cost differences, and then we'll go from there. So I had one suggestion, for example. I was hoping to get a couple of raised sidewalks in there because the speeding has been a problem since the 1990s. There was just huge complaints since then. So anyway, I think that's the best thing, and I'm sorry it's a 2-week delay, but it was not on the agenda to bring it forward tonight. So anyway, I'm ready to make a decision at the next meeting or a special meeting before that. Doesn't bother me, but I'm not ready tonight, and we're certainly spending a lot of time going on about it, so thank you.
Councillor Lerner.
So essentially, if council's not willing to vote on it tonight, that's fine. So what my recommendation is that I'm going to make a motion, and if council wants to refer the motion to the next meeting, they can. And then that's my recommendation. So I'm going to move that council direct staff to instruct the engineers to prepare two design components for Dickinson Road. One main component of repaving the road only while maximizing walking space on the north side, if possible, or where possible. And two, an optional design component for a path on the south side. And further, that both design components be brought forward to council for discussion and approval of the components and questions with the engineers such for additional features such as raised side crosswalks.
Okay, I'll second that. Director Sepola?
When you ask for design, would you like to see a concept instead of a full design? Because one costs a lot more than the other, and one can be prepared a lot faster than the other one. Like a full design's gonna require a few weeks, but a concept that you guys can look at might be quicker, less expensive, and maybe make a decision from that. Would that be a better
So a
suggestion?
unanimous consent of council just to have concept design. Any objections? Okay. All right, so Councillor Lerner is the mover of that motion.
Yeah, basically, would be give staff a direction that follows what I think I heard, and maybe I heard wrong, so I apologize, but what I think I heard from Councillor Jones, which is basically repaving only with maximizing walking space on the north side where possible. And then there would be a second component to the optional concept of a path. Council could then review both when it comes back, let's say February 11th or whatever, and then we could make a decision based on those concepts. But at least this way, we get to visualize it and not go all the way to a full design. It's just a concept, but get to visualize it and get some cost ideas. If council wants to defer this to the next meeting, that's fine. But I would recommend at least this way, when we don't have a meeting next week. If we come back in 2 weeks, hopefully we'll have a concept that we can look at.
Okay, for myself, for me, really what I'm prepared to support was just what the engineers had come back with. And again, I'm a little bit confused based on all the discussion, what that design actually had in it now. But to me, I thought the recommendation was just this basic repaving, and then there would be some improvements to the shoulder, but nothing significant. But anyways, we'll see what comes back, but I think staff has the direction of what we're looking for. But I think it's, again, as long as staff is coming back with what was recommended by the engineer, and then there's a couple little add-on caveats as per the discussion. Councillor Jones?
Yes, two things. The first is, you almost got the first part to the meaning that I was intending, Councillor Lerner. It's just to take the asphalt space to the right of the white line up to the maximum width that Coors considers. I would like to amend that motion to remove the word for walking, because you don't designate that space for walking. If you want to think about that while I raise my second point, which is I wanted to split the motions. I'm very happy with directing Coors on the first part of your motion as we tidy up the language a little bit, but the second part of the motion, I'm not sure there's the majority here to support a trail, a path on the south side, and I don't want to incur more time and money having that designed out if there isn't. So I would like to split the motions and then vote on each one of them separately, so we're not creating work that isn't supportable in the future. Thank you.
If I may,
I need to make a motion
Well,
to
what
divide
is-
the motions.
What I was going to suggest is that I think everybody would agree that it was the design that was recommended at the presentation, and maybe I'm the one that kind of veered everybody off the topic by suggesting there was a path, but my understanding is that the option that the engineers have made the recommendation of is repave it, and there would be some maybe widening on the south side, but not like an actual path, like a multi-purpose path. Or maybe staff can speak to that, because I think that's where this is going completely off the rails, perhaps.
So the design that was given to council was the replace option. They showed the challenges between the north side, and then they showed opportunities on the south side. Like, they showed the path, the challenges and opportunities on the north side were shown. And it was a lot more challenging when they went through and they graded, and they showed you how many more intercepts with with any kind of pedestrians might have walking on that side, as opposed to the south side, which had less impediments to pedestrian movement. And they showed some of the driveways and some of the cross sections and the challenges in the cross sections. So that's what was in the design, but the costing was specific to just repaving what's there and not doing any other expansions.
So what I would suggest is we just amend the motion on the floor to strike reference to pathways, or the reference to the pathway on the south side. And then the other part of the amendment could be, you know, to deal with Councillor Jones's concern, but anyways, go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to call to divide the motions, please, if we could do that. And then get on with it.
Okay,
I do not
so
support the
division of
pathway
motion's
on the
being
side.
called, I'll
Yeah,
second it.
Thank you.
We'll call the question on dividing the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And then if staff can just read back the first motion so we all have it crystal clear.
That's okay. And if I need to make any corrections, feel free to jump in. But the first part of the motion was that council directs staff to prepare, instead of saying 2 concept designs, it'll be 1 concept design component for Dickinson Road, which is for resurfacing and maximizing the, I don't know what we want to call it, walking opportunities on the north? Space to the right of the white line, okay. Okay. I think that's a little bit different than what was stated originally, so I'm going to read it back again.
Yeah, we'll just get it read back completely and then we'll
Yeah.
make changes. We shouldn't be doing it on the fly like this.
Yeah.
Just let Director Wells finish.
Okay. So the motion now reads that council directs staff to prepare a concept design component for Dickinson Road with resurfacing and maximizing the space to the right of the white line on the north side.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just make an amendment to motion right away, and that's to strike the reference to maximizing the space to the right line, just to strike that from the motion. So that it strictly deals with just the resurfacing.
Okay.
And if I have a seconder. Okay, fails due to lack of seconder. Who's next? Councillor Lerner?
Yes, sorry, I want to ask a question through to staff. It says for staff to prepare concept, I assume that would be done in conjunction with the engineering firm. And then, thank you, and then my second part to that question is when it says maximize space to the right of the white line on the north side, that would be at the end, I just want to make it clear, and I think this might need to be amended actually, but I want it to be at the engineer's discretion as to what's being done, and does that need to be in the motion or is it implied?
I think it is implied, but I'm eyeballing Director Sepola as well.
And point of information.
Just,
Based on his recommendation.
So it would be recommended by Coors, who would use engineers to do the assessment.
Okay, so then it's redundant. It would just be the engineers who would deal with it. And then now that if I may ask, now that the motion is severed, we'll deal with the pathway motion as a separate motion, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I support the motion on the floor on the condition, of course, it's the engineers who are using their discretion.
okay, Councillor Jones, and then I have an amendment.
Yes, I think we had some information today from Coors where they went into some detail on that space to the right of the white line and what 1 meter and 1.5 and 1.8 meters meant. So they already are on it, and I use the word maximize totally, intending to put it at Coors' discretion. They obviously know what they're doing with that.
Okay, so the amendment I'm going to propose has to deal with both sides of the road, because I just don't understand why we're doing one, and so hopefully we can have discussion on that. So just amend the motion on the floor by inserting and south after the words, I guess, north. Second by Councillor Lerner, and if you can, council or staff can read it back, the proposed amendment just in.
Okay. No problem. I'll read it back as many times as you
Sure,
need me to. I
yeah.
agree it's important we pin this right down. So council direct that staff prepare a concept design component for Dickinson Road for resurfacing and maximizing the space to the right of the white line on the north side and the south side of Dickinson Road?
Yeah, that's the intended amendment. So I'll speak to it real brief. So I know I hear a lot of discussion around people travel on the north side and so on. As a resident in that area and with young children at one point, riding bikes, walking, running, all sorts of stuff, even, in my prefab days of training and stuff and being in much better shape, I used to run quite a bit along there. I've spent plenty of time on the south side of the road. I don't understand why we would completely negate both sides of the road if it is possible to widen on either side. So if we have to pick and choose, I think at some point we would have to make that decision, but why we would negate all the people who live on one side of the road versus the other, it kind of floors me actually. Because I know a lot of residents, and including myself, that have, travel no problem on the south side or the high side of Dickinson Road, as narrow as it can get in places, but it gets narrow on both sides. So anyways, I think it's important to make sure we have both sides covered. I'll leave it there. Councillor Lerner, seconder.
I'll support the motion, and if it passes, then I will, this isn't a tit for tat, but I'll defeat my motion for a path, because the entire, or vote against it, I guess. The entire reason I had that motion for a path on the south side was because I wanted to note that there'll be parts where the engineers cannot widen the north side, and then the south side could fill in, and so having that path is just, but if, it would be very expensive to do a path, and the number one complaint I hear is actually not the bumpiness of the road, it's the walkability of the road. So I'm fine widening both sides where the engineers think it can be widened, because there could be a part on the north side where there's a driveway and on the south side there isn't. So it could be, and if we're already, and my motion, the intent is that the drawing would come back and we could discuss about crosswalks and all that. So I'll support the amendment, and then I would recommend defeating the part about the pathway on the south.
Councillor Jones and then Councillor Savage.
Yeah, just for clarity, I support what you're saying, Mayor Swain. If we are talking the same language, I think we are. First, a correction to Councillor Lerner. This motion is not about widening the road. The road width stays the same. It's about asphalting what space is available to the right of the white line. And I agree that absolutely needs to be done on the south side as well. Unfortunately, there isn't much space, but there's a lot of area where the grass from the ditch has started to grow over what was asphalt. So when that just gets cleaned up, it's going to add quite a bit. Some places a foot, 2 foot, for sure. So just through to Mayor Swain, is that what you are asking for in your motion, to clean up that space to the right of the white line on the south side of the road? Is that what you meant?
Just would like to see what comes back in terms of what is possible. Because again, what I have always known about Dickinson Road from talking with the former Director of Public Works is it's a very challenging road with all the different angles and such that, it makes a lot of things very difficult. And when you have difficulty, you have increased costs. So we'll just leave it there. I don't know what's possible. And on both sides of the road, in fact. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Okay, so then I'm not sure I can support it, because I'm trying, by dividing Councillor Lerner's motion, to get something that can get passed, which is just the simple resurface the road as it is, tidying up the edges, adding a little more asphalt. That's it. If what you're asking is going beyond that, moving ditches over, filling in
Not at all.
ditches, or anything like that?
Not at all.
No? Okay.
It's no different than what's being proposed by adding a
I'm
little
fine
bit of
with that.
asphalt onto the north side of the road. It's no different to that. In fact, anyways, I'll let Councillor Savage go.
Yes, I'll certainly support this. I know the road well, and if we can give some more walking room, all for it. And the second thing is I'd leave it up to the engineers. I have no problem with them widening the asphalt. On Sebastian Road, it went from 16 feet to 20 plus feet. So when you replace a road, there's nothing wrong with expanding the asphalt if you think you, for some reason, like walking safety. So if there is opportunity there to widen it a bit, and in their report, they said it fluctuates between 8 and 9 meters, the width. So it's already, the edges are undulating. They're not an exact width the whole way. And I just wanted to point out too, since we're not doing funding, we're doing design now, is that the most important people in this are the people that live there. And I want to take them into consideration more so than what I'd like to see. So they may have different thoughts. And I know when we were proposing the going from 50K down to 30K on Dickinson Road, I took the time to go door to door to a lot of Dickinson Road houses, and I think they really appreciate being brought into the mix. So, but at any rate, I'm ready to support the amendment and vote on the motion, and then I look forward to Councillor Lerner's second motion to look into that. And this will not preclude his second motion, and it won't hurt to see what they're proposing. It's just a concept with a rough idea of what price it might be. It's not going to hurt, and then we can make a decision there. They may hardly be touching the green infrastructure. I'd like to see what they're proposing. Anyway, I'm prepared to vote on this current amendment and motion, please.
Mundell?
Yeah, I'm struggling with this as I'm seeing Councillor Lerner's original intent to have a path to be a valuable resource to this community. I've walked that path many times, or that road many times when my kids were going to Girl Guides and I had some time to kill, and there were many days it was a very, very uncomfortable, scary walk because of the cars and the speed, I just think that it would be unfortunate that when we're gonna go through all this process of upgrading the road, that we wouldn't provide something safer for the residents and folks who do walk along that area frequently. I get that there are significant costs associated, but I don't know, I can't really get excited about encouraging people to walk on the side of the white line on a very busy road. So I'm likely not to support this, but I also wish we did have more input from those residents that live along there, because if everyone said, you know, we'd rather have it cost less and we're okay with what it looks like and how it functions now, then I think I could live with it. But as of right now, I think probably a lot of the folks there think that this is the opportunity, the one time when they may actually get a walkway, a proper walkway in that area. But, you know, now we're saying likely they won't. So, and yeah, so that's why I'm likely not gonna support this motion or this amendment.
Okay. All right, so I'll call the question on the amendment, and this is just to include both the north and south side, just for the undulating expansion or whatever you want to call it. Okay, all those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. And then we're back to the main motion as amended. Anything further? Okay, I will move to call in the question. All those in favor and opposed, noting Councilor Mundell's opposed, that carries. Now we're on to the second motion. So maybe I'll just get staff to read that out, please.
So I'm just going to have to piece together parts of the first one and parts of the second one to make it all make sense now. So, it's that council directs staff to prepare a concept design for a path on the south side of Dickinson Road, and further that, this is separated from the first one, sorry, further that both designs be brought back to council. So we understand both designs have to come back if council is okay with that. So that means the motion would be that council directs staff to prepare a concept design for a path on the south side of Dickinson Road.
Okay. All right, so speakers, I got myself, and then, or go ahead, Councilor Jones, and then myself.
Yes, I think we need an idea of what the additional cost is. I didn't hear that in the motion, but does that come with the design, the estimated cost, so we have an idea?
That's correct. We'll ask for that.
Yeah, thank
We'll
you.
ask for a Class D estimate if they can provide one.
Thank you.
Okay, so for myself, and I, you know, speaking Councilor Mandel's concerns about doing all this work and then not doing an improvement. And you know, while we have the opportunity, I think a lot of residents on Dickinson Road are going to be disappointed. There is no path. I know it's been an ongoing issue for as long as I've lived in Lantzville. Like, I know I was talking to my brother-in-law who's a planner, and years ago, and I asked, because I was mad as heck about, you know, the situation and what my kids were gonna have to face and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, at that point, he was like, yeah, it's gonna cost you basically $1 million to fill the ditches and put in a sidewalk if you wanna go all the way from, you know, up Dickinson to Lantzville Road. And that was like, you know, 14 years ago or 15 years ago now. So, you know, obviously there's a lot of cost escalation, but I think it's definitely worthwhile looking at and seeing what the impact is on, you know, potential loss of green infrastructure. You know, there's always trade-offs in this business. You know, we can't always do everything we want to do, and including maintaining certain, you know, pieces of infrastructure. It's just unfortunately that road design and all the driveways that connect to it just don't lend well to doing much. And every outcome leads to more money being spent, unfortunately, and lots of challenges. But my understanding, the south side has always been the cheaper side of the road to do the path on. And, you know, there could be additional crosswalks added or raised crosswalks to get people to the south side or to connector points, kind of like what we did at Orr Road, because that was, you know, a connection point to get across the road. So anyways, I'll leave my remarks there. I can support the motion because again, it just gives us that option to look at, and the council might say, no, that's just way too much extra money to spend, and we just, you know, nix it at that point. So any additional speakers? Councillor Savage?
Yes, I'll support this, as I say, because it's more than just my opinion. It's the residents there. And back in the 90s, when I was regional district director, we had a meeting of a lot of people showed up on Dickinson Road. Tom Harris was there. And they were huge complaints about the speeding and how we could solve it. And here we are 30 years later. I can't believe that nothing's been done. So I'd like to include, I don't know, if, through chair to staff, is it possible to look in to get an opinion from Coors about raised sidewalks and either raised crosswalks, please?
Actually, you said that earlier, and I do have that in my notes.
Oh, thank you very much. Just so we get some feedback on that, because it
Absolutely.
would be a shame not to try to cure this speeding. And I fully understand emergency vehicles and all the rest, but it is working successfully on Lantzville Road, a collector road. So, and that's it. I'll certainly support this. I'd like to see what the concept is and so on. Thank you.
Like I've always told my kids, you know, cars don't see bikes, so wise up when you're out there on your bike. And the same thing when you're a pedestrian, cars don't see pedestrians. It's just a life skill that sometimes you have to employ when you're on not so great of roads. So I'll leave it there. I'll call the question. All those in favor and opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay. All right. So that takes care of Dickinson Road giving direction. So thank you for that, council. Moving on. So obviously, we're still on the budget or capital plan. I know Councillor Savage has a motion, but again, I don't know how council wants to proceed, simply because, you know, again, we're getting this at the meeting, and it makes it difficult. So I don't know what council wants to do. Councillor Jones?
Well, what we seem to be doing at the moment is just picking things from this list that a counselor feels a need to talk about, and maybe when we've done that and look at the rest, it will be easy to just pass them all at once. So I'd like to raise one that will be very, very quick discussion that I'd like to talk about, which is on the list, which is the Harper road end improvement, $50,000. My comment is just a very short one, which is that the There are encroachments at the end of that road on the west side of the road, and a house has recently been demolished, so I'm assuming a new house is going up. This would be the time for our staff to take a look at removing those encroachments, just because that, before the new house goes up and, further plans happen.
Okay.
I support the budget, capital budget item.
So as a recommendation, I think what we could do as a council, we can't say there's encroachments unless it's, it's being surveyed and we know for a fact, right? We can speculate, but we shouldn't be doing that. So my recommendation would be that we would, release monies or have it in the budget that the Harper Beach Road end is surveyed. But I thought it had been, we had recent surveys, and this is the problem, not having really, the intermittent revolving door for Public Works is,
Your worship, I do recall us talking about the extent of the intrusions on a beach end. I just don't remember if it was Harper.
well, they're on a lot of the beaches,
yeah.
unfortunately.
So we
But
can take a look for that and just see what's in the past, like what we've looked at.
I just can't remember if we got it surveyed when the VIU students were doing that work. Maybe we didn't.
So
I know we had the survey from, oh man, one just down here. No, not Lavender. Yeah, we had the survey for Lavender because of the sewer.
Okay.
But, and then we also did another one because there was, because there was the lot line, with respect to there was an encroachment there that we had to deal with, so.
Okay, well, I can at least take a quick search for what council motions are related to the beach ends and just see what I can come up with, just while the meeting continues.
Well, we could just do a motion that deals with, surveying it, or at least putting the funds in there, and if we don't need to, then the funds just go back into the appropriate reserve. So, Councillor Lerner and then Councillor Jones.
I was just going to note, sorry, I was just going to note that we do already have multiple motions on file to remove any encroachments. So I would support whatever gets done. My question through the staff is, the Harper Road beach ends 50,000, the improvements, does that include surveying already? Or would we have to increase that amount in order to include surveying?
That would be all inclusive of anything that would need to get done before we installed anything. So that is all included.
Okay. So we probably just want to keep that amount. Go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Just a quick question. When a property is sold, isn't there surveys on the property? Is that accessible to the district? Because that maybe this has already been done.
Yeah, Director Robinson.
Through your worship to the councillor, typically no. What's done when a property transaction occurs is title insurance to ensure that if there are any, then they can be addressed at a later stage. Other jurisdictions across the country require surveys to be completed when a transaction occurs, but British Columbia does not have that requirement. There is also no obligation on behalf of the surveyor, if they did complete a survey for a private property owner, to share that survey with the district.
Thank you.
Okay. So Councillor Savage?
Yes, I wonder if we could leave it up to you, Mayor Swain, as the chair, if you could make a decision, please, or maybe put it to a vote if people either want to go through it line by line or do my first motion, number one, do it that way, which will be faster. I'll leave that up to you, just so we can get started on approving these things, please.
Well, I think your motion does have this same effect as essentially going through each one by one anyways. So, because, as part of the debate, if there's anything, so, because but then we would have to do a series of amendments just to remove things if people aren't comfortable with voting on any one particular item that's included, so. Through the rest of council, I don't know if there's any objections really to just moving. Councillor Savage can move his motion, not read the whole thing because of interest of time, but you can just read the first piece and then we'll go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So that council approves the following capital items and their funding proposed for the District of Lantzville 2026 to 2029 financial plan as described on page 131 of the January 28th, 26 agenda.
Okay. Okay, so second by Counselor Lerner. And then what we can do is at this point is just go down the list, and if there's any discussion or debate or if amendments to essentially just remove, just in the interest of time. And then I'm sure we're gonna be left with a residual list that we can just approve. Yeah, Director Lasher? Or
Yes.
sorry, CO Lasher.
Yes, this works really well. Sorry, Counselor Savage, can we change that to 2030 instead of 2029, your
Oh, right,
motion? Is
yeah.
that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, no objections from council? No, okay, good. So 2020, yeah, 2030. Good catch. Okay, so, yeah, the first one's the Alger Road asphalt culvert replacements, 700,000. I'm just waiting for any objections or debate. Okay, next one is the Eastwind Drive, all asphalt replacement. And I'll just speak to this real brief. We did have some correspondence, you know, if staff can maybe speak to that, if we're looking at doing a, you know, potentially water to the winds and doing a bunch of work up there, would we maybe want to defer this to a couple years from now, or 2028, in anticipation that, that road could be getting torn up?
Yeah, definitely, that would be a good idea. This was what it was on the schedule, the previous schedule, but you're right, if this is one that's gonna get torn up for a water line, we should defer it.
So maybe what we can do is, with that one, is I'll amend the motion on the floor by inserting after Eastman Drive asphalt replacement 440, or 59,500, and then just to be referred to 2028. Does that work for staff?
Yes,
Or to, yeah, 2028 in the, you know, 2026 to 2030 financial plan? Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Second by Counselor Lerner, and then discussion. Hearing, and just again, speaking to a real brief, if say the winds, water to the winds project does not happen, then we can make an amendment to our financial plan later this year just to put that money back and start, you know, getting the work in order, or getting it ready. But I think we have other projects or asphalt replacement projects, well, that probably will be taking priority over that, and that would be the Dickinson Road project, because it's much larger and more complex, so. All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? And opposed? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, next one is the Lantzville Road Blood Creek culvert replacement. That one is, yeah, for 420, any thing? Okay. Next one, North Road, 25,000. And everybody knows what that's for, maybe. North Road is kind of falling apart. Yeah, accesses the beach road end. Okay. Rumming Road culvert replacement. There's a separate motion for that, but Councillor Jones?
Yeah, I think that one just needs to come out of the quick approve list because there is a separate motion on that, or maybe it was removed, but in any case, I would like to discuss it, so if we could just remove it for now.
So amend to just to strike it?
Yeah, from Councillor Savage's list of quick passes. To remove it for discussion separate from the list. 'Cause I think, aren't we working through Councillor Savage's list?
Yeah,
Are we
yeah,
doing
so
this?
that's it, yeah. So we're gonna strike that. Do we have a seconder? No. Well, I'll second it, but Councillor Lerner, I know you want to speak to it. Doesn't mean it's passed or anything. Go ahead.
It's just to talk about it later. Take it
Yeah.
off the list, keep going, 'cause
So-
it's a discussion.
just, we had already approved this as 2025. It has already ready to go to bids. So we actually aren't awarding the bid tonight, but if we take it off the list, it can't go to bids. And
Point of clarification, it's not on the list. We're looking at Councillor Savage's list. It's
Yes.
still on the capital plan list. The purpose of removing it from Counselor
Okay, you're
Savage's
kinda
list is so we
debating
can
that,
get
so
through this
I,
quickly.
I appreciate that. I do not support removing it from this. I believe that we should absolutely include it in our main motion to continue. At this point, if we take it off, if we debate it separately, we might not even get to it tonight. And staff need to be able to move forward. We have received word that the engineer has finalized the design, and within 6 weeks, we'll be ready to go to bids. We have a very short window for construction, and I do not support removing it.
Okay. And if I may, I think, you know, the reality is that we can leave it in there and it might just be a redundant, you know, motion. You know, it just depends on if we get to the notice of, or sorry, the late item that's on 12A, right? So, yeah.
If I may, I actually withdrew that because staff said it was redundant because it's already in the capital plan. So I withdrew that late motion.
Well, it's still on our agenda, which is approved. All right, so, yeah, Counselor Jones?
Yeah, just to make clear, if I understand correctly, we are not removing it from Counselor Savage's list, and we are not discussing it later. Not on the later motion on the agenda, because it's actually been removed, and not later on the capital plan, because we will be passing it. This is your intention, correct?
Well, go ahead, Counselor Lerner.
Basically would stay in the list, but we would be debating it when the bids come back. Because we already passed this. So we already voted unanimously in the 2025 budget to send it to bid, to design. The design is complete. The next step is for it to come back with the costs, which we don't have yet. So because the bids haven't come in yet. So no, we wouldn't be giving final approval until the budget's approved, which the tender will be back before then. This is an item that was already approved. So it's essentially a reconsideration to do anything other than include it in the capital list.
Yeah, and if I may, like, even if we, you know, if we can still do 12A, and 12A is kind of instructing for the early release of funds. Or CO Lasher?
This is a carry-over item, so Counselor Lerner is correct. There's no need to discuss it, and when the bids come back, council will get those bids in 6 weeks when it goes to tender, and then council can vote on it. Right now, it's just a carryover item that, this is kind of a moot point. You shouldn't really even
Yeah.
need to discuss this.
Yeah, go ahead, Counselor Jones.
Yeah, so if I could just have clarification on this, so my apologies if I'm wrong, but I had understood that the original approval was for actually a different plan, and that the plan has been changed. And without that having come to council, the plan was upgraded to a more expensive plan. So do I have incorrect information there?
I believe you're thinking of the Bloods Creek one?
No, I'm thinking of Rumming Road.
thinking of this Rumming
If I have
Road?
incorrect information, fine. So this is exactly the same plan from day one.
It's to replace the culvert with another culvert. That's
Okay.
my understanding.
All right, so I'm gonna call the question on amendment. It sounds like course of action is just vote it down. Okay, all those in favor and opposed? Yeah, that looks like it's noting that. Okay, unanimously opposed. Okay, so there we go. It remains on the list. Okay, so cruising down, we got Phantom Road, chip seal overlay. Okay, and moving on to Pierce Woods Marine Park Safety Works, 25,000. Okay, Harper Road, end improvements, 50,000, we already spoke to that. Leaving that alone. Decontamination washing machine. Okay, rescue turnout gear. New fire engine. Counselor Jones?
Yes, I'm just a little bit confused about when this fire engine is actually wanting to be purchased. I understood from a past one that it was to be purchased by the end of next year, but in 2 installments. And I think what I'm seeing now is all the money on this year. Could you please speak to when the acquisition is and yeah, thank you.
Yes, so the reason why I'm putting it all into 1 year is because I need to encumber the reserve totally. So I need to set aside the second payment. That's why you're seeing it all in 1 year, but it won't actually get released until the truck has been delivered. So, and delivery is expected, if it gets ordered, I'll let the fire chief speak to delivery expectations.
Yeah, just
So initially, the plan with this truck is to take the first $600,000 as down payment. The build period for a fire engine at this point is 24 months. So we're looking, that basically gives us almost a 3-year period to have that truck delivered. However, once this is approved, should a stock unit or a unit that's in the process that meets the needs was to come up for a reasonable price, we may come back to council at that time and ask to go ahead and proceed with the purchase of that unit. But at this point, we're looking for a design and tender in 2026 with the expectation of it arriving in 2020, end of 28, early 29.
okay, Councillor Jones.
Yes, and I'll just say this with full respect, if you don't mind, though, could you please speak to the timing of this and the need for this? Has the timeline been changed, and what kind of new fire engine will it be? How's it going to help the department?
So this truck, it's built in right now into its time frame. Basically, the frontline engine runs for a 15-year period, and then we kick it back to be the second line truck. This is a fuss requirement. And in the second line position, they can go up to 25 years. The truck that's being replaced is currently 22 years old today. So in 3 years from now, it'll be at the 25-year mark. So if we get a truck in 3 years, we're perfectly on time. If we get one a little sooner, that's even better for us. And we basically try to keep that time frame so that the front truck always goes back to be the backup and the new one comes in to take that spot.
Thank you very much. I support keeping it on the list.
Okay. All right, so next one's radio.
I have
Oh,
a-
sorry, go ahead,
my
yeah.
hand up. Yeah, I also was questioning the time frame and wondering again, because we have so much on 2026, whether this is an item that could move entirely to the next year, to our next budget year.
So I just would like to maybe get a clarification. Are you concerned about the workload or the fund release? Because we'd only release half of the money, so it'd be a $600,000 release, and then I'd just set aside, like I'd freeze 600,000 in the reserve, and I'd make sure that that was available for the second payment. That's what I mean by encumber. So it can't be spent on anything else, but it still sits in the reserve and earns interest.
I hear you. I just wonder again, if some of these things have to get cut. We have to make the difficult decisions of making, some of these things just can't all be done in our next budget cycle.
Yeah,
It's-
as this truck is nearing its life expectancy, it's not recommended to cut it this time. This is a 22-year-old vehicle, and it's normally a 20-year lifespan. We run them for 25 on second line. So this truck should already have technically been moved to second line already, but we're still running it first. Is that correct, Chief?
It's actually running as a backup currently. It's in the backup position. Normally, ultimately, we'd like to replace them at the 20-year mark. We have taken this one out a little further. What I would say is if you kick this down the road, we're seeing increases between $100,000 and $300,000 a year in an engine. So the further we kick this down, the more money it's going to cost the district in the end. You're actually better to go forward and purchase almost a stock truck or a truck today than you are 3 years from now. Also, and all the trucks that I've purchased over the years and all the trucks we've purchased here in Lantzville, we've always been able to set a price on the truck through a tendering process. That no longer exists. There's not a company out there that will give you a firm price today with the dollar changing the way it is and the economy in the world the way it is. It's a floating number. So the sooner you can buy that truck, the better deal you're going to get for it.
Is there also then the possibility that we can sell the one this backup truck?
It would be disposed of. Literally, these trucks go for anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. They're not worth a lot once they're done. The problem is once they no longer have a certification to them, they're not worth anything to another community. They're good as a farm truck, or a public works department may pick one up, but they're really not worth anything as a fire truck anymore to a municipality.
Okay, I'm curious then, how did we acquire the ladder truck that still had a lifespan on it?
So the ladder truck, it's a 1997, so its pump capacity no longer meets the requirements for the fire underwriter survey. The elevated stream and the ladder of the truck still meet the rescue requirements for the community. So that truck is not counted into our pump capacity, which is what sets the fire insurance rates for Lantzville. So that truck literally is only an elevated stream and a rescue device. It's not used directly for firefighting.
Thank you.
Okay, I said a question, and then I got Councillor Lerner. Through staff, like, with respect to the new fire engine, like, is it result in any new taxation? Or is this purely funded out of reserves?
I have 50% of this truck coming from borrowing. So I'll borrow up front for the truck as it's getting built. And we'll start making payments, so there will be increase to taxation on this, unless council says they don't want to borrow for this for sure, and then I'll have to find other funds.
Okay, yeah, I just don't have the reserve balance in front of me, so that's why I asked the question. Go ahead, Councillor Lerner.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand a couple of things. Number one, if we pay the deposit of 600,000, is the price locked in? So that because it was talk about fluctuating price, once the deposit is made, is the price guaranteed?
The price is no longer guaranteed when you purchase a truck. So it could float. We're kind of taking a best guess at this number as to where they're going, and speaking with the manufacturers, that's where we are right now. It could go up, it could come down. We really don't know where it's gonna land with that. So we're kind of taking the best information and giving that to you at this time.
Thank you. If I may have a couple follow-ups. So just if the deposit is made and the contract is signed, though, does the second half fluctuate of the payment? Like if let's say they say it's $1 million, we put 500,000 down. In 2028, can they say, oh, now it's 10 million, or like, is it set? Is it set once you've signed the contract?
So the way I understand it is that the down payment portion of this is for the cabin chassis of the truck. So when the cabin chassis lands, we pay for the cabin chassis. We own the cabin chassis at that point. The fluctuation point is what's being built on the back of the truck. So it's the second portion of it would be what could move around a little bit. They're not seeing huge swings, but they definitely year over year, they are starting to see it really start to creep up. One of the biggest issues that they're running into right now is actually engines. If you buy a truck that was a stock truck in 2025, which is now a 26 truck, you're good. However, if you buy one that's a 2026 version with the new emissions that have come out, it's an immediate $100,000 difference just with the new engine. So there's quite a bit of variance in there.
Sure, and if I can just ask my two follow-up questions. One was the certification that was mentioned. We have to maintain a certain pump capacity in order to get our insurance. When this current truck hits 25 years, is it still counting towards our pump capacity, or are we in trouble there?
We'd be in trouble there. That's where it needs to be replaced. Basically, we have two engines, our main firefighting force, and those both need to be rated engines. So after 25 years, there's a small window in there that you could apply to extend out another 5 years. I would solidly say that Lantzville would not ever get that. That's for a small municipality that basically has no funds whatsoever. It's more of a Lasqueti Island kind of situation. I don't think you would see it as a municipality. I haven't heard of one that's ever got it for that.
That leads to my last question, which is, I mean, to me, it sounds like we basically have no choice but to replace this because we're hitting that 25-year mark and we can't lose our insurance. But my question then is about the borrowing. Is that what we did with our other fire engines in the past, was borrow and pay them off over a period of a few years? Or how did we finance our previous fire engines?
So with the tender in 2019, there was enough money in the reserve fund to purchase that truck. With the mini rescue, the last one that we purchased, there was money left over from the borrowing of the, I think it's phase 2 sewer, and we basically borrowed money against that, and then they paid that back over the life of that. I guess that my understanding from the previous financial director is that money could only be paid back at a certain time and had to be paid back in full at that time. So there was a large sum of money that was not used in that project, and that's what they borrowed against to fund that truck, and then paid it back year over year until they had to pay it out.
I see. So we've borrowed in the past for trucks, just not all of them.
Correct. And if I had to take a guess at it, the last engine that Lantzville bought was probably financed as well.
Okay, thank you. I support it.
Go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yeah, this is an important and interesting item to be discussing because it reveals a lot, but I'll certainly be supporting it. Two things. One is that it's not that uncommon, the borrowing that's been done ever since I lived in Lantzville for different things. I think it was 1989, the fire hall, when it was built, was on borrowed money, extremely high interest rates. Often the local service areas involve borrowing, with the local service area paying it back. So it's all it does. And also when individuals buy vehicles, they often borrow the money and then pay them off. So it's so we've created a financial stabilization fund with the idea that it will smooth out the lows and the ups and so on. But the other reason this is important to me is I've mentioned this before without quite clarifying clearly what I'm talking about, but I'll be ready to increase funding quite a bit. What I'm waiting for is a really stable, predictable system so there's no surprises, so that the increased funds are going towards your capital reserves, proper capital reserve funding. But the fire department is a perfect example. Since I've lived here, there's such a predictable, dependable operation. There's no surprises with the fire department. And the 7 years I've been on council, we've always been funding the fire department, whatever they ask, because it's so well run. And if you add up the whole cost of the fire department with 22 recruits, I think it is now, that it's just an unbelievable price for all we're getting out of it. But my point being is how predictable it is. And if we're borrowing for things like this fire engine, then what we do is we start increasing the contributions, yearly contributions for the next fire truck. But it's easy to do with the fire department because it's so predictable. So I just wanted to point that out when I say that I'm waiting for a system that's predictable and steady. Then what I don't want to do is put in a lot of extra funding, then suddenly a surprise comes up and it's gone. That's what I keep talking about when I say I'm waiting for this to start putting in the proper capital reserve funding. So this is a perfect example of it. So I'll certainly be supporting it, and we can look at increasing the funding for the next one so that we won't have to borrow when that time comes around. So thank you.
Yeah, just a couple comments for myself. Yeah, I think with probably with the fire trucks, there's been quite a lot of cost escalation that was maybe not anticipated, and that's kind of caused some of these problems. To kind of build on Councillor Savage's comments, the fire department is predictable in the sense that everything has definite lifespan, so their lifespan replacement is really easy to figure out. And that's supposed to feed into our asset management. So if our asset management is on track and working, and we have the proper reserve contributions going in year after year, without crazy fluctuations in the costs of these, the apparatus and so forth, then, we shouldn't have to borrow money. The money will be sitting there in reserves waiting. So when it's time to replace these, the various pieces of apparatus, we're ready to go, and it's really seamless. But, it's part two or motion of Councillor Savage's, there's asset management plan updates for 100K. That's what that deals with. So anyways, I'll leave it there. Anything else on the new fire engines? Or fire engine, sorry. Okay, radio replacements. Oh, Director, yeah, Spola.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to know, being that we borrowed from the sewer reserve before, does council have an appetite for borrowing from the sewer reserve again for the fire truck? Being that this is something that you've already done once? Because I can redirect it to do internal borrowing as opposed to borrowing from MFA.
Yeah, like, you know, I believe there's specific rules you have to follow if you're borrowing internally. So I think whatever, you know, the recommendation from staff is, you know, that basically the cost the municipality the least is the way to go. But see some hands flying up, Councillor Mandel and Councillor Jones.
Is that money not set aside for some of the sewer projects that we have, like the next phase of sewer development? I wouldn't want to take from that if that's gonna slow down the next set of residents who've been expecting and anticipating sewer, next sewer phase project to be coming their way.
So the collection in the sewer capital reserve comes from user fees and from parcel tax. So the money that is in that item, when I don't have my binder here, I'd have to read it back to you, but you can internally borrow, and as long as it's repaid, my understanding of the regulations is as long as it's repaid before the capital item that needs to be replaced that was collected for comes up, you're okay to borrow from yourself. So right now, I think there's 2.1 million in the sewer capital reserve. And I wouldn't actually put that borrowing in place until the second payment came due. Right now, the vehicle reserve, the vehicle and equipment reserve, which was the fire trucks and the public work trucks, were all put into one reserve last year. And so it's got $613,000. So that's where the first payment would come from. The repayment then would flow through based on a schedule that would be created from us internally, and we'd be paying ourselves interest on that reserve, paying it back. And that would be a taxation, you'd be collecting it from the taxation side still, and then repaying it back to the utility. I have read the regulations. Currently, I don't have any large sewer projects coming up with the exception of phase 4. And that, because you've always done a local area service taxation for that, I would maintain that as local area service taxation moving forward. Just in fairness to the people who've paid in for phase 1, 2, and 3.
Absolutely, but is there not any capital costs that the districts incurs other outside of the local area service?
Yes, so the capital replacement plan generally speaks to the collection system, the lift stations, the benching systems that we have and all the nodes that are on the line. Benching is typically done every 25 years. Lift stations have a life expectancy of about 50 years. Lines that are in the ground right now, because they're relatively new, would have a 75-year lifespan. Normally, I'm just saying normally, if something happens and there's an incident on the island, like say an earthquake or some kind of disaster, all of that's out of the window, or if there's a flood or something like that, you're replacing a lot sooner. But the expectation regularly is, 50 to 75 years for your large collection infrastructure. And then we don't have any processing plants. That's all done through the area, the RDN. So we're just looking at collection systems. And we don't have any new construction that I know of or that's been pointed out to me, which is why that might be an opportunity to borrow internally. So my question back to council was just like, if you have an appetite for it, I can look into structuring that and getting that completed as opposed to MFA borrowing. So I just wanted to know what council's appetite was for that, so I can do the research and get it prepared for council as an option.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Yes, my only thought on this is that Thank heavens you can run all of those numbers. It's either going to cost us more money to do the loan, or it's going to cost us more money to take it out of reserves and lose the interest on that money. I think that's for you to run the numbers on that, and just, for me, I'm happy with whatever you recommend as the least expensive, or for some other reason, just the wisest option.
Thank you.
And just as a point of information through to Director Sepola, does either of those two options come back as a borrowing bylaw to council, whether we do it internally or externally?
The external borrowing would be a borrowing bylaw. I need to look into internal borrowing, but there would be documentation on that with repayment schedules involved.
Okay. All right, so anything further on fire engine? Okay, moving on to radio replacement. Okay, tires for engines. Okay, computer replacements. Counselor Jones?
Yes, just if I can get a little clarification on the history of this. My recollection, well, first of all, it's new on this. I just assumed that it was inadvertently not put on computer replacements, because I do understand that it's done periodically to upgrade the computers. We had a discussion on this last year. What I'm remembering from that is about every 3 years, we need to turn over our computers. And I also can't recall exactly how much we put into that last year, but I thought we did a big contribution for a big turnover in computers. I may be wrong. I'm kind of hoping we can take this down to 15,000, depending on what you have to say in terms of why it's at 25,000, and then it's in every year thereafter as well, but for less, for 15 or 17.
So in 2025, it was for 15. The recommendation from the person, like our IT people, was for 64. I do not want to do 64. I want to stage them better than that, because 64 would pretty much replace every computer and monitor we have. So I'm just trying to stage it a little bit better so that we can get into a better life cycle. And yeah, you're correct. It's every 3 years for the higher end users, and I want to see if we can do some greening as well by recycling some of the computers for someone who just goes and looks up parts or is just on the internet. I want to see if I can recycle a little bit better, but I need a bit more time for that. This isn't just computers, this is monitors, monitor arms, this is all the components that come with a computer. A docking station alone is $450 for every laptop, so for a $2,000 laptop, right away, you've got to add in the new docking stations. So, I want to do it, I want to see if we can do it a bit cheaper than what the IT provider is saying, and see if we can get additional years, or, maybe buy something a little bit more expensive so we get 4 years instead of 3, get those kinds of trade-offs.
Yeah, go ahead, Counselor Jones.
So am I correct that this particular line item is funded by taxes?
It comes out of reserve, so yes, it's funded by taxes. This
It
is
is,
one of the ones
okay.
that's funded by.
Well, in that we need to try to save wherever we can, would staff be comfortable with taking the 25 down to 20,000? And just, at some point, we need to whittle away here at this 32 million.
The 25,000 comes from reserves. If you wanted to leave 5,000 in the reserve, we can make that change if council so desires.
I'll leave it for council to weigh in.
Okay, for myself, I'll just kind of quickly speak to this, because I think it's kind of speaks to our budgeting process. So I gave CO Lasher my binder from a few years ago, because how the budgeting was done then, it was a little bit different, because with all these items, we would have special request forms for, and it would explain a lot of the rationale as to why certain things are being requested, where was the funding coming from, was it going to affect this year's taxation rate, and so forth. So a lot of the discussion that's occurring tonight would be, not to say we need to curtail it, and we can always have discussion, but it would definitely inform the discussion a lot better than what we're having now, because Because I go along the notion of if staff is saying 25,000 is required, I'm believing that. I'm believing 25,000 is required for computers, and who am I to start negotiating, up or down? Mostly it's always down, from that number. If we need it, we need it, and that's why it's in the budget. And, again, we're relying on staff's professional judgment on what needs to be in there, what must be included for this year's budget, because of what the actual operational needs are. So I'll leave it there. I think I had Councillor Lerner, no? Okay, any additional speakers on computer replacements? So I'm hoping next year's budget, and it'll be up to CEO Lasher and her team to, look at the budgeting process, because again, if we had special request forms for all of this stuff, life would be pretty simple right now. And even the discussion around the fire truck, that discussion would have been a lot simpler, because we would have had that information right handy, like where's the funding coming from? We would know then before the meeting that there would be borrowing likely happening, and the options for borrowing internally, externally, that sort of stuff. Anywho, we're always talking about having systems. That seemed to be a system that worked quite well a few years ago in our budgeting process. Okay, moving on. So we have the lift station.
Just gonna
Yeah,
make
go
a
ahead.
comment too, and it would also be helpful for us, and again, to have known sort of the life cycle of some of the capital items as well, including, for me, the computers when they were last replaced. So that, again, we have a better idea of what kind of life cycle we're on. If it's 3 years, well, I mean, I've had my computer from work for a lot longer than 3 years in some instances. So, yeah, I'm just, again, it helps us to understand if, and what that number will be covering, so.
Okay, CEO Lasher.
I do recall Public Works telling me they all share one computer, and when it comes to water, they're manually writing everything down. So, they would like to start putting the water meter readings into a spreadsheet. So basic things like that have been neglected over the years when it came to Public Works. So when everybody's sharing one computer and logging in with the same code, and the water person is only using paper and pen, I think it's time that they get some technology there.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Mendo.
Totally support that, 100% agree. I know that there are a variety of different options available out there on the markets. Not everybody needs a laptop with 2 monitors and a docking station, right? I know that there are computers out there, desktop versions, that you can get for, $800. So, not opposed to that, to supporting that. But I think we just to be really mindful of where each dollar of ours goes in this small community. So, totally get that. I appreciate that everybody should probably have access to technology, but not everybody needs the top of the line, and again, the full gamut of technology that somebody who maybe does require 2 screens, because that's all they do all day long is look at screens. So, yeah, just want to make that comment.
Okay, and again, a lot of this would be dealt with asset management, right? So it'll just come up like computers. It wouldn't be 25,000, and it would probably be just a weird number. It'll be maybe like 17,500, because that's what will be up in that in a future year. So again, having asset management is pretty critical to all this stuff. So, so next item, lift station odor control. This is down at Huddlestone, from what I understand. Councillor Savage.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention this proposal stinks until it's completed.
All right, any other, whatever, smelly comments? Anyways, okay, so next on is the T-valve at Ware Road Reservoir, 75,000. Again, I don't really know what this is, but So I'm good with it. Obviously, it's listed, it's required. Water main replacement at Millard Lynn, Lantzville Road. Oh, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I know this has already been tendered, but there's just a typo here. The budget says 865,820, and the motion says 805,820, so that 0 should actually be a 6, I think.
Was 865,000?
On the budget, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just a 6 instead of a 0 in the tender agreement.
Sure. Okay. Next one is the Winds Water Expansion, 9 million and change. Councillor Jones and then Councillor Mandel.
Yes, I do not want to get in discussion about this tonight because we're short on time. We have not finished our discussion on this either as a council. So I hope we can do that soon so we can sort it out, but I would like it removed from the list for that reason.
Okay, Councillor Mandel.
Yeah, I think this one warrants a lot further discussion before we sort of put a specific number in our budget for next year. So yeah, I agree, it should not be in our approved list at this time.
Okay. Any additional comments? Councillor Lerner and then myself maybe.
So just if I understand, if it's removed from this motion, it's not removed entirely, it's just not in this motion. Right, it's not removed at all. It's just not in this motion, so we would essentially be voting on it separately, and if we don't get it tonight, it would be at the next budget meeting. Okay, well then I'm fine removing it from this motion.
Okay, Councillor Savage.
And through chair to staff, I thought this was just a housekeeping one in that we've already accepted the grant. And so is there a reason why this is in here? It's just basically,
It's a carry forward project. It's not coming off the list is my understanding, but it is a carry forward project and it has been accepted for grant purposes. So, I mean, if council wants to discuss it further, I'm not aware of the discussion, or I'm not sure of you know, is it maybe just the funding that needs more discussion?
Well, go ahead, Councillor Savage.
well, if this is part funding involved, then that is a separate matter that would require approval later anyway, wouldn't it? So.
That would be correct.
Yeah, so I don't see we're making any decision tonight. I've seen this so many times in budgets where all it is, it's just a housekeeping matter of just a project we're working on, just taking note that it's ongoing. That's all I'm
Exactly.
seeing it. And
Yeah.
we're not approving anything here in terms of providing funds and so on. It's just simply recognizing this is the total involvement of this project. So it's just by approving this doesn't mean anything. And don't forget, in budgets, we can amend them in any way we want at any time during the year. So all we're doing is recognizing this is the project total cost. We're not making any decisions beyond that. That's how I see it. We're not making any decisions. I don't see there's anything to discuss here. So, thank you.
Yeah, so for myself, you know, again, I would agree with Councillor Savage. It's just a placeholder in our agenda. It doesn't mean anything at this point because nothing is, there's so many other steps that have to happen to basically give approval to moving on that project. And yeah, so I'll just leave it there. Councillor Jones?
Yes, I'm fine supporting it then, but if I could also request that we have some time on an agenda, and I think it has to be in camera to discuss this further. There's some things that have come up today by email that I can't discuss, but we would need to discuss them in camera because it does impact this, the thinking on this anyway. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm unaware of any emails and stuff, but again, Councillor Jones, just submit your motion and the staff will work with you to determine what's open and what's closed. All right. Okay. So the next one is the Wellfield Automatic Transfer Switch, Phase 2. Again, I have no idea what this is, project. Not that I need an explanation because time is running short, but this council wants to hear about all these fun things.
It's water related.
Yes, that's what I figured. And then would this be obviously funded out of the water fund?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. So if you're not on water, you don't pay. That's the good news for those that are on wells. Okay, SCADA system, again, this is another water system item. I did have a question about this, and maybe staff knows, I know we don't have any public works folk here today, but is that, you know, I guess it's just due, is that?
That's correct.
For the
It's reached
upgrade.
like, it's approximately 7 years old.
Okay,
So it's time for the computer to be replaced, and then you need to upgrade pretty much everything. This is the main system that the plant operator uses to maintain controls over water production.
yeah, okay, thank you. Any other questions on that? No. Hydrant replacement maintenance program. Okay, if you got water pipe in front of your property and you're not hooked up, you still pay for this. Annual water system node maintenance. New fire hall construction, grant dependent, 13 million and change, Councilor Werner, and then Councilor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. So basically, my understanding is for the sake of the grant, we have to leave this in there. If we take this out, the grant's gone because we've essentially already voted that, but that doesn't mean, I just want to confirm with staff, if we get the grant or between now and March, when we find out about the grant, there's nothing stopping us from working to lower the cost because the grant is up to a maximum of 7 million. 100% funding. So for example, right now, the 13,713 is basically what the Class D or something estimate came in at, or Class C for the original design. But if we want to modify that design and bring it down to 9 million or something, we can still do that within, and we would just submit a new design for the grant as a change. Is that correct?
We'd be looking at working within what council was wanting us to do. So if you don't want to go to the 13 million, it was the design that we had at the time, because you had to have a shelf-ready design to apply for the grant. So that was what was ready on the shelf to go. And changing the design because we have a monetary constraint would most likely be in keeping with the grant, for sure.
Right, thank you. So in other words, it would be recommended to leave this in there for now, for the sake of the grant application, so that we don't lose that.
Yes, please.
But then we can then, between now and whenever we get to the grant approval stage, or even beyond that, we can modify the design to lower the cost.
Actually, the fire chief and I were talking about that exact thing before, when we were going through a handout that we received and talking about, you know, steel versus concrete and those kinds of things, so.
Councilor Savage?
Yep, so I handed these out just out of interest. I'll give you my copy, CAO last year when I finished here. But I just thought I'd point out, because we did discuss this before, that we certainly look at ways to trim down the cost. And don't forget, that was just an estimate we were given based on, you know, building costs and so on. But I find it's always more accurate to compare it to things that are already been built. And the Lantzville one, our estimate, it works out to $962 per square foot. The Cumberland one, which is amazing, it was built in 2021, works out to $240 per square foot. Dashwood, brand new one, 2025, it worked out to $590 per square foot. Cowichan Bay is $787, and Nanaimo was the most expensive. I heard one comment saying it was the most expensive in BC, but it worked out to $1,161 per square foot. So Lantzville 962 is on the high side. And the average of all these would be 645 per square foot, including the Lantzville, or compared to Lantzville's 962. I'd just say that to be optimistic, that I think we can find, in the end, we can reduce the cost down somewhat. So I just say that to be optimistic, and I agree with Director Sepola. It's not to change that 13 now, it's not to draw any attention to when you have a grant in flow here. So, yeah. So thank you.
Councillor Mandel.
So my question is, if we do get the grant, because we've submitted a plan to get this grant, and if we then change, let's just say we get the grant and we go, we're not going with that $13 million design that we submitted, and we're gonna go with 100% something completely different, does that affect the grant? Because we've been in this position before, where we've applied for grants and wanted to change things, and then we get told, no, the plan you've been given, the plan that you submitted is the one you have to fulfill to get the grant money.
Well, for clarity, there's scope changes, and then there's material, like building material changes. So if we can save money, like what was costed in there was a cement building. And changing it, as long as we're changing it within our monetary constraints, and we still meet basically having the fire station that's gonna supply the same services, I don't think that will be an issue, but I can check into that if the grant is announced. Like, if, I don't wanna raise any flags at this point in time, I just wanna see where we're at. But I don't think that it would change it, because I did talk to the person that we worked with for the grant, and the chief, and lowering the cost of it when we do get to that stage, if we do get to that stage, I don't think we'll impact it. But I mean, great question. I still have that question, and I want to be sure that we're going to provide the service from that fire hall that we said we were. I think that's the most important part of getting that grant, is the service to the community, as opposed, moving to a steel building, which is considerably cheaper, I don't think would bother them that much.
Okay, but I would like to have that reassurance, because I would not want to get caught in a situation where they said, no, you submitted that 13 million plan, and that's what we expect from this. And, this is the plan you originally said that you were going to follow through with, so that's what we expect. Because again, this is my personal thought, is that I think we probably should have submitted a design with the accurate and realistic numbers that we can achieve. And I kind of feel like part of me wants to actually withdraw out of this and then resubmit with something that, again, is more realistic for Lantzville, so that we can actually be beholden to the plan that we can actually come through with. Because right now, it does not feel good sitting with that number on our capital budget list.
We're too far down the road to withdraw and resubmit. That's the first thing I'll point out. Second thing I'll point out is you still have to sign a contract when you accept a grant. So if at that point, that's when I'll ask that question, is before I sign that, and just say the monetary constraints with the projects that we have on file right now, it's not possible to build the $13 million. Would you consider us changing the design to be 10 million? That's when I'll pose it to them. But all of this is, it's just going to be academic if we don't get the grant anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
And no, what I meant by resubmit, it wouldn't be for this year.
Oh, okay.
It would be down the road.
Oh, yeah,
because
definitely.
when we're
Down
in-
the road, you know, if we get better costing, sorry to cut you off.
Right.
But if we do get better costing or we pare it down, because eventually we will have to build a fire hall. So we're gonna have to go back and get something. But the other problem is this was costed at what it was costed at. I mean, we'd have to change quite a number of things to bring it in, much like the public workshop, you know, like how much is council willing to provide for that, which that's on motion number 2, right? So, and it's also a report in here as well, so.
Right, yeah. And it's just, again, for my comfort level, even at 10 million, we're not in the ballpark for what I would be comfortable with spending. It's such a big ticket item, and it's a big load to put on this community. Again, and also considering all the other capital projects that are on here. It just, again, this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. So when I see that grant on there, I think we should have probably submitted the plan that we could have realistically come through with, rather than sort of this standard that maybe we could never achieve. So I guess we'll find out in March, but unless there's anybody else who feels the same way, would like to take a different direction on this grant.
Counselor Jones?
Yes, I do feel the same way, and I had a question for staff. You've said that when you apply for the grant, you have to include the servicing that you will be providing in the end product. So my question through to staff is, do you think you can, and that if you don't provide that servicing, then that's the big problem. So my question is, would you be confident saying that you can get the cost of this fire hall below 10,000 and still satisfy the servicing requirements that are in the grant? 10 million, yeah. See, I think very positively.
Sure, through the chair to staff, I'm not in the construction business. I can't definitively tell you that can be done. Looking at some of the other projects that have gone on out there, they've definitely come in quite a bit lower. So, you know, my personal belief is we definitely can bring that price down to a more reasonable amount. Just a little background on that whole plan. The initial one was done fairly quickly with the Public Works building to meet the requirements of a grant. It was split out into the Public Works by itself and then the fire department. Basically, this grant sort of popped out of nowhere and dropped at our feet. We didn't have time to go and do another design. Not to mention, I don't want to. Don't completely quote me on this, but I think we spent $50,000 on the design that we originally had. So we spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort into that plan coming up with it. So, you know, to walk it back a little bit and somewhat use the same footprint is going to be in our best interest. If we change construction material and still build the same footprint and are able to save in that, along with some of the different mechanical ends of the building, so be it. That's where we're gonna find the cost savings. But if we actually scrap this, it's one of those things. Again, it's going to cost us more again to go down the road and redesign a whole nother building. So it's not that it's a bad design or a bad plan. It's all good. It just definitely could use some tweaking to get it to where you want it to go as far as the finance goes.
Yeah, just for myself, and then we can keep going around. Yeah, the reality is the grant, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's 7 million up to 100% funding, correct? And yeah, so you know, anything above and beyond, obviously we would have to take on, but you know, we'll figure that out as you know, just after we even see if we get the grant. But the reality is we can change the scope of the project. It's still going to be a fire hall, and as long as it's meeting the demands of our community, doesn't matter what it looks like. You know, at the end, the people giving us the grants aren't going to pull that money. We'll still get the 7 million. I can say that with pretty high confidence. It's just a matter of, you know, we just can't turn that 7 million into a community center. It has to be a fire hall. That's what it's going to be if that's the direction we go in. But yeah, I'm with council on this. You know, the cost escalation is, yeah, it doesn't sit well, unfortunately, and it's just the reality of the times we're in. For borrowing money for a whole bunch of different things now, yeah, yeah, it'd be nice to have lots of money trees to plant in Lantzville, but go ahead, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to make sure, because I did hear Director Sapola say that there are servicing terms in the grant that we have promised to provide with the grant, and we cannot change those servicing terms. So I'm basically asking, is staff confident that we can get the cost of this fire hall down well under 10 million and still provide the terms of servicing? And that may not be a question you can answer right now, but I'm just feeling that me as a counselor needs that information.
Through the chair to council. You know, I look at that from the service level. We would never go ahead with a building that wasn't going to meet the needs of the community and be able to provide the service to the citizens of Lantzville. If we can't make that work, we can't move forward on it. So can we do that? You know, I'm very optimistic that we can come up with a lower price and a you know, some cost savings within this building to try and get it to a more appetitable amount. And still be able to do exactly what we do today. We haven't promised anything more than we're doing today. What we have promised within that building is a better layout, a little more space for the firefighters, and a safer work environment.
Sierra Lasher.
In the interest of time, because I know Councillor Lerner has to leave in 5 minutes, we do need 10B to be passed tonight. There's a grant that depends on 10B. So I'm just trying to just tell you what our priority is right now, is we need to see 10B tonight go through council. Yeah, so I just wanted to make that clear. You can decide what to do, but we need to get to 10B tonight before we close the meeting, please.
Okay, so through the council, there's, what do we have left? So we have one more. It's a Harwood Reservoir expansion, grant dependent. It's very similar to the WINS in a way. It's a placeholder. Anybody want to chat about that? No? Okay. I will move to calling the question then. So on the motion that's being moved and seconded and amended, anything further? Councillor Jones?
Sorry, I think you just missed one. Maybe I'm mistaken, but the last item is tennis court rehabilitation. It's also grant dependent, so I don't have any problem with that.
No,
Did you mention? Sorry, did you mention that?
Separate
I
motion.
missed it.
I got all the lists.
The,
Well, we're on motion one.
yep, my error, sorry.
Okay. All right, I'll move to calling question then. All those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. All right, so through to council, yeah, so 10B. I know where we're on right now that, hold on, gotta make sure I got this correct. So we're on 9A. So what the recommendation would be, I think we've gone through. No, we haven't done 9C, so we'd have to suspend the agenda and go immediately to 10B. Is there any objections through the council on that? To suspend the agenda and go to item 10B? Okay, hearing no objections. So there's a motion on the, or there regarding the Accessibility Advisory Committee recommendations. So before we do that, what do we got here for time? We need to do a motion to extend. Are there any, and we can put a time limit to it. I don't want to stay any later than 9:45 myself, but extend to 9:45. Any objections? You're objecting? Okay, so we're gonna lose the meeting here. It's not, I don't think we can actually get this on the agenda, or sorry, on the floor and have a sufficient debate, so we will probably lose the meeting. Councillor Savage?
Yes, could you ask the question, please, if we can just deal with this item without extending the time, just until this item's dealt with?
Well, that's what would be a lot for, is, so it would give us a little bit of time to deal with 10B.
No,
So,
to
is the
yes, sorry.
Okay, I'll
Counselor
I'll
Savage, it
withdraw.
was to go to 9:45. I asked if there's any objections. Counselor Jones objected. And it was to deal with 10B. That's
I'll
why we
withdraw my
suspended the agenda.
objection then.
Okay,
Sorry, I thought it needed two on council anyway. I didn't realize it lost the meeting, so maybe I'm mistaken on that. I thought I could object, but it took two to object to this meeting.
by unanimous consent to extend. Well, I was just doing it by unanimous consent to extend. It wasn't calling to that actual question. So anyways, we have it by unanimous consent to extend to 9:45. Someone prepared to get the motion on the floor. Go ahead, Counselor Lerner.
That the council accept the accessibility advisory recommendation to install either option 1 with the quoted cost with a single parking stall being asphalt, or the updated quote with the entire parking lot being asphalt, included as listed in the January 15, 2026 accessibility pathway to Huddleston Park report to connect the Huddleston Park accessibility improvements and amenities to the parking lot.
Second by Counselor Savage, and then for discussion.
I'll make it really quick because I have to go, but I just wanted to confirm. In this case, there is no additional funds required at all from what council's already approved. It's purely a design that we have to vote on. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it has to be voted on tonight because the Spark grant is due?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Counselor Savage.
Yes, I just want to thank the Accessibility Committee and especially Director Long as well for all the work you put into this, much appreciated. So I'll be making an amendment in a moment. My only concern about asphalt, I have many concerns, but two of them are the liability issues. In our options we were given in the report, one was for gravel. It was a certain type of gravel that's described there. And for that, the two problems are the liability of when it's icy and frost and cold in the winter. There's already been complaints with sidewalks and so on in the village that it's going to be slippery and you fall and so on potentially. And it's not going to be looked after in the sense of continually salted. It's used every day, that park. And it's not going to be salted and cleared and so on. And gravel solves that. The second reason is that with young kids, it's happened so often with me that it's beyond belief. But all my kids did it, and now my grandkids are doing it. They're in a grass park, and as soon as they see asphalt, they run on the asphalt instead of the grass. And they often wipe out, so they get hurt, skin chin, skin knees, injury, and so on. So, and that would solve that problem as well. Plus, I think it would look more in keeping with our rural-looking parking lot and the appearance of the grass park as well. And it is allowed under the grant to do that. So it's agreeing to everything except substituting the asphalt for gravel. So I'll make that amendment now. So I move to amend by inserting at the end of the motion, and further that the parking stall and path be created with the appropriate gravel instead of asphalt.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Counselor Mundell. And then further discussion, Counselor Savage.
Well, just basically, I've always got a heart for different body types. There's senior body types. There's kids' body types, some having to get around in wheelchairs, so they change in your life, your body type, and some people are born with different body types. We're all different. So I'm hugely appreciative of, looking after these different groups of the different body types. So we're within that spirit of doing it, and I've always been a big promoter of that, and the gravel will not impact that at all. I've seen wheelchairs, every Remembrance Day I see wheelchairs going around the grass. It's very hard grass there. So this is more for getting the grant, this path, rather than the realism of of people still can wheelchair on grass, and it's an accessibility acceptable as long as it's a certain type of gravel. I forget the name of it. It's listed in the list in our report. So that's basically it. We're achieving the same thing, but with a more desirable product for the path is the key there. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mundell is the seconder.
Yeah, just through to Deputy Director Long. The reason I'm seconding this is just to get input to see if this is feasible and if this falls within the parameters. We went through this with the Accessibility Committee over and over with which different mediums would be acceptable by this grant. So I just want to make sure that what Councillor Savage is bringing forward falls within the grant parameters.
Through the mayor to the rest of council. So currently, as I understand it, the wish from council has been to be gravel. However, based on the standards, to keep a gravel path accessible continuously, as long as the path exists, when there's gravel displacement regularly, either due to use, to weather, and other events, when we have people coming in and out of the park for like Minetown days, those have to be re-maintained. And so part of that maintenance cost would be to re-gravel it and make sure that the edging on the sides still comply with the slope compliance. And if, like was mentioned before, there are vehicles entering and exiting for local events, that would have to be looked after each time. So it's under council's purview to decide what they would like to do, what's best for the community. However, professional recommendations from adjacent municipalities that do this kind of work, like engineers, planners that worked on accessible parks, did highly recommend asphalt or concrete, which is more expensive.
One of the things we did mull this over for quite a long time in the Accessibility Committee as well was, again, we recognize that for some, it could be a trip hazard as they transition from the grass onto the path. But we were assured that it could be set fairly level, and that actually is an important parameter to make it accessible so that there isn't that sort of jump or lip. I'm not crazy about asphalt. I don't actually love a lot of the options that are available within this, but the grant has specific parameters, and in order to meet the entire grant, it came with, again, this is the example of we have to meet the plan that was given. And with the plan comes the pathway. The pathway allows everyone to access the playground. So without the pathway, the playground isn't necessarily accessible for all of the population. So this is where we struggled, and we landed on the asphalt as the most affordable and lowest maintenance option. I would love some sort of gravel option, but also gravel spreads and gets kicked around a lot too. And it probably also will make cutting the grass a little more challenging as rocks go flying when you hit a whole bunch of gravel. So there's not a great one size fits all for this. I don't love the asphalt, but I do think that probably with the parameters that Deputy Director Long has just mentioned, and the recommendations from other communities, we maybe should consider sticking with that versus the gravel, but I'm willing to hear from council.
Okay, I had myself down next, and then I got Councillor Jones. I won't be supporting the amendment, I'll be real brief. You know, we have only one piece of correspondence on this. you know, is very well written and, you know, articulates this position of sticking with asphalt. And then we also had the email from Deputy Director Long regarding this as well, speaking to it's recommended, this is what, you know, adjacent municipalities are doing, the contractors that do the work and so forth. So I understand, you know, what's being suggested with the gravel, but you know, and also working in the area of, you know, I'm not an OT or person who works with children with disabilities or adults with disabilities and wheelchairs and so forth, but working in the field of rehabilitation and so on, you want to remove as many barriers as possible. And and having gravel could be a potential barrier. Why have it? So I'll stick with the original recommendation. Councillor Jones.
Yes, I have two questions, so through to Deputy Director Long there. That's, first of all, I'm very confused, because when this grant was first put to us, we were told it was covered 100% of everything, and it was just for accessibility equipment. Then we found out, that was $80,000. Then we found out that the cost of the equipment went up, we'd have to cover that. And that costing has changed a bit. I think we're up to $153,000 with the grant covering 80,000 of that. Correct me if I'm way off here, but it's something like that. I asked several times as this process went on. I said, this is fine, you know, these things happen, but I just want to make sure there aren't other requirements of the grant. And I specifically discussed pathways and parking spots. The answer was no, there is no other requirements required. So my first question is this required by the grant? And when did this change? The second thing is, I understand that there's accessibility needs that can be very specific and for a reason, but I'm wondering if there's tiers in the accessibility, and we're looking here with all this pavement as sort of the gold standard to serve the most people for accessibility. We want to serve the kids that are going to use this playground. How much do we need to do to accommodate that? So are there tiers in accessibility? And the reason I ask is that Harry Whipper Park in Nanaimo has accessibility equipment. It's on bark mulch, and it's in a dirt gravel parking lot. So do we have to do this?
Through your worship, through to the rest of the council, when this was submitted through Paragon, which is PPMI, Larry Marchand, the original iteration from the get-go had a pathway. And the reason that had the pathway is that the people in the community with diverse abilities have the right to access the amenities like every other community members. So that is the standard. They have the right to reach those amenities. I listed options in the report. It has come to council. The pathway was always discussed as being part of this project. It was never not part of the project. It always had an accessible stall. It always had a pathway. Any accessible park requires to have an accessible parking spot and a way to get to the park.
Okay. Thank you for the response. We're going to be losing the meeting again here shortly, and we have an amendment.
Can I
Unless
call
there's anything further on the amendment, go ahead, Councilor.
Oh, sorry, you already said it. I want to call the question on the amendment
Yeah,
because
so
we're
I'm
about
going
to
to call the question on the amendment, and that's to go to gravel. So all those in favor are going to gravel, and those opposed, noting Mayor Swain's opposed, Councilor Mundell's opposed. Okay, the amendment passes to go to gravel, and now we're back to the main motion. Anything further? Okay, I will call the question. All those in favor and opposed, noting Mayor Swain's opposed, Councilor Mundell's opposed, carries. All right, so where are we at here? Just make a motion to adjourn the meeting. So second by Councilor Lerner. Call the question. All those in favor, opposed, that's carried unanimously. We're adjourned.